this himself. Run it up the middle, and he scores.
Whether you're new to crypto or an active trader, they've got you covered. What are you waiting for? Get started at blockchain.com.
Did you know that responding to one spam call can lead to more? Or that the IRS would never ask for your social security number on the phone? Beat scammers at their own game by subscribing to AARP Fraud Watch Network alerts and texts. At aarp.org/beatscammerstx, you can sign up to receive information that helps you recognize and avoid the latest scams. That's aarp.org/beatscammerstx.
Your turn it on, leave it on. Home of America's team is 105.3 The Fan.
Hello, baby.
KRLD FM and HD1, Dallas Fort Worth.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
From our fan studios secured by DFWsecurity.com, it's time for the Get Right on 105.3 The Fan.
Yes, indeed. It is the Get right here on 105.3 The Fan. I'm Reginald Atatula. Chris Arnold, the three-time Hall of Famer, will be joining me shortly. Thanks for rocking with me on this Wednesday evening in the Metroplex. I got Ross Lubinsky on the ones and twos. Thank you, sir. And you rocking with us. You can always get involved with the program by texting in to the truckwreck.com text line. That number is 877-881-1053. Again, 877-881-1053. Or you can watch us by searching 105 through the Fan on YouTube or going to twitch.tv/DallasFanCam. As I mentioned, Chris Arnold will be joining me shortly. You heard him just a second ago, hosting Cowboys Crosstalk, the final one of this season. Not because of the Cowboys record or anything or what happens there, but we just that special programming has come to an end. But hopefully the Cowboy season will not. They have opportunity this week to start a trek in the postseason with the Green Bay Packers. Before we get further into that, obviously I got you till 11. Want to let you know that. Myself and CA will be here till 11 p.m. We got you with what should be a fun program. And currently, as we got you till 11, we'll give you updates on the Stars taking on the Wilds. They are hosting this time around, and they are doing one of those things as a host that you're not supposed to do in real life, but in sports you're definitely supposed to do, which is whip these people. 3-0 right now in the second period. I know that Matt Duchene had a goal. I know Rope Hintz has a goal. Let me see if I can catch up with it. Oh, and Joe Pavelski got a goal in the first period. They are handling business in the highlighter green jerseys or sweaters, the black ones with the highlighter. What's the right word for that? Because I was going to say highlighter highlights, and that sounds stupid.
Yeah, I was going to say neon, but I don't think that's exactly what you're looking for.
I mean, it is neon, but trim, I guess, for lack of a better term. But yeah, Stars handling business on the ice at the AAC. Again, we'll keep you up to date, and hopefully there won't need to be too many updates because they will just handle the Wild in this one. But again, we'll keep you up to date going on there. But like I mentioned earlier, you got Cowboys, Packers this weekend, Wild Card Weekend, or as the NFL wants to call it, Super Wild Card Weekend. And that'll be on Sunday, 3:30, thereabouts. And you can hear that right here on 105.3 The Fan. But look, man, this might be the game of the weekend that is the most expected to be lopsided, or the most expected when it comes to who the winner should be. I know that the line is 7.5, or it moves to 7. My apologies on that. But I do believe that this one might be the most lopsided. And as I take a quick perusal of what's happening, oh no, Bills Steelers has a bigger line. But I mean, still highly expected that the Cowboys are going to handle the Packers when it comes to like just the betting of this all. And I think as we talk about this game, there's certain people that come up a whole bunch for the opposing Packers, right? Obviously, Jordan Love is the name. Obviously, when you talk about football in general, the quarterback will come up, right? And so with that being the case, Jordan Love is going to be a person of interest because in some ways, he was a little bit of an unknown commodity. There was a guy that they drafted in the first round a few years back, sat behind Aaron Rodgers, and now they have to figure out, is he the guy? And he's shown some flashes, and I think that he ends up being a focal point. And you also add A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, their running back duo. Those guys are really good. And you'll hear those names brought up as, Ross, I'm going to throw it to this audio. We sent it to our Cowboys correspondent for Cowboys-Packers. Micah Parsons broke down this game. This is how he broke it down even.
These are the Packers, Cowboys with Coach McCarthy. Coach McCarthy are the dead down the media, so I'm not going to let y'all make this about me. This is about the guys. I've been praising Jordan Love all season. He had one of the best debuts of as a Packer quarterback and Packer history. Obviously, over 4,100 yards, 32 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. And yes, I said Jordan is a friend of mine, but we are not friends on Sunday. This is going to be a great matchup. The Packers are also the youngest team to make playoffs since the NFL expanded to 16 games in 1978. This is a young team. It's going to be super, super, super dope matchup. Super exciting. I mean, man, oh man, this is going to be a close one. This is going to be a good one at that. But we're at home. Man, it's going to be a great game. I can't wait. Obviously, LaFleur is one of the best coaches. And Mike McCarthy is one of the best coaches. It's going to be a heated matchup on Sunday. Great game. And obviously, they got Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon. I mean, super great matchup. Can't wait to play out there Sunday.
All right, a few things to know. I just want to take an opportunity, and again, I'm not trying to be a jerk or nothing, but it made me chuckle a little bit how he said debuts. He made sure to get that T pronunciation in there. Made me smile. That's all I just wanted to make note of there. You heard that, right, Ross?
Yeah, and it was so funny too because it's almost like when like that one friend in a friend group says something just like super out of pocket and like multiple people kind of like look up and look at one another like, did he really just say that?
But it wasn't that out of pocket, and it's not even something that like is egregious or anything. Just caught my attention. I thought that was hilarious. Shout out to Micah Parsons, but also right, didn't seem like he had a ton to say when it comes to this game, and some of that is probably just, hey, he's about to play this team. No need to give all the advanced scouting, right? But then also, I think that some of this is the expectation of this game is that the Cowboys should handle business there. And you notice the players that he mentioned. He mentions A.J. Dillon. He mentions Aaron Jones. He mentions Jordan Love. And I think that when it comes down to it, that's the side of the ball that people are paying attention to. However, is there more to this matchup that we're not paying attention to, especially when we're talking about the Dallas offense and the Green Bay defense? And the reason why I bring this up also, Steven Ruiz of The Ringer wrote a very interesting piece about, the basic storylines to the various wild card matchups. And what he highlights is this offense with Mike McCarthy, and if they can exploit the defense that is helmed by defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, Joe Barry. And this seems like a nonsense question because, again, the Cowboys, when it comes to scoring, was the league's leading scoring offense and was also the second best offense by EPA. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. Like, this was a very effective offense this year, and that's considering that the first 5 weeks of the season was so-so, and then they came back after the bye week, and they came back stronger, and they looked a lot better running offense. And then you compare that with a Green Bay Packers defense that is 23rd in EPA, expected points added. And so with that being the case, like, I think they're also about league average when it comes to points defensively. And so all these things come together and you go, that's a bad defense, a good offense. What's there to consider? I found this very interesting. Dak Prescott this season has been very good all the way around, but I think the instances where he's had a little bit of issue in the passing game is when you've seen some coverage, particularly cover 2, cover 4, cover 6. And that happens to be what Joe Barry plays most often with this Green Bay Packers defense. And so with that being the case, you look at the kind of numbers of this when you have those cover 4, cover 2, cover 6. The numbers for Dak Prescott get a little bit worse. And I mean, especially when you talk about the total EPA has gone down, the yards per drop back goes down, which somewhat makes sense, right? We're talking about cover 2, cover 4, cover 6. Those are kind of blanket coverages with safeties over top and trying to, stop deep passing, gives you some opportunities underneath. That's to be expected. The EPA per drop back also drops in these instances, and the success rate drops. Not a ton, but a little bit. And so with that being the case, and CA, I know that you've joined me here. Hey, do you have any level of, I don't know, concern is not the right word, but do you think that we haven't thought enough about this matchup with the offense and the defense, considering that the Green Bay Packers might do the things on defense where they make the Cowboys be patient, work underneath, and consistently work up the field?
I would be concerned if they're on the road.
Okay.
Seriously. If this was the scenario and that's what they did, There's a slight concern because the last month they haven't been as dynamic as they normally were outside of the Washington game, but you already know the Washington had packed their bags by halftime. But I think at home, the comfort level, the fact they've won 16 straight there, the home road splits are insane. And the fact that Green Bay is the youngest team to make the playoffs since the merger back in the 60s.
Yeah.
I just think that, the Cowboys' formula is to score first and then make the other team make adjustments. And I think that's going to be the formula for success. So I'm not concerned, but it's something to be talked about because you got to consider it all. In other words, if things aren't working right, that's probably one of the issues.
Yeah, and the reason why I bring this up again, right? You've seen in kind of the efficiency numbers, the way that these schemes or the ways that Green Bay plays are some of the ways where you see less effective stats on a very effective season for Dak Prescott. And if you pair this again together with when the Cowboys played the Packers, not this past season, but the season before, that was a 31-28 victory for Matt LaFleur's team, where their offense was very effective on the ground with Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon. And then if you consider the idea of the defense that they play, hopefully, at least from the Packers' perspective, you hope that you're not giving up big plays. You're making them be methodical. And in that game in particular, Dak Prescott throws 2 interceptions. So you obviously turnovers then factor in. That's what they're hoping to see the Packers are. I don't think that they'll be successful considering the ways that the Cowboys have gotten better with their turnovers, particularly this season. But you can see a situation in which the Packers are able to run the football, can't you?
Oh, of course. In fact, that's been the Cowboys' Achilles heel for years. And with Dan Quinn's defense, they're pressuring the quarterback, which leaves an opportunity for teams to run it down their throats. And the good part for the Cowboys, Jonathan Hankins is back. That helps. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you can't quite trust the fact that this team is going to hold up on the running game. But one thing is comforting. The Miami and Detroit games, the run defense has been better.
Yeah.
Just in time.
Yeah, definitely better. I don't know if it's completely fixed, and I don't think that's something that is going to be completely fixed in a quick turnaround.
I don't think that's part of what I don't think that's part of their pedigree on the defense.
Right.
Because, again, it has never been where it was there, and then all of a sudden it's broken this year. It's never been. It's always been an issue.
But the idea being, I think that there's a little bit more to this matchup. The Cowboys offense, the Green Bay Packers defense. The Green Bay Packers also have done a great job when we come to drafting. Gutekunst, the general manager, we made a lot was made of the idea that Aaron Rodgers, while he was there, they didn't get him no wide receivers and all that. However, you look up and a lot of the players that they went and did bring in, especially later in the draft, have been impactful, including their defensive players. And so you mentioned how young they are, but they're playing pretty well, and they're playing with house money as well. There's a level of expectation that isn't there for them. And so I do wonder if they're able to be relatively disciplined, make sure that they force the Cowboys to work their way up the field. And if the Cowboys aren't consistent in scoring in the red zone and getting down the field, and if they find themselves where they're maybe not disciplined and they get themselves into 3rd and longs, the Packers seem to want to have them on the field a whole bunch, see if they make mistakes, and then if they can run the football on the other side, I think that would be maybe the recipe that poses the biggest chance of being successful against the Cowboys.
Yeah, I don't think the Cowboys are going to lose this game, but the scenario you're painting is a possibility because all you have to do is look at the last game against Washington and realize in the first half, basically the first quarter and the first half of the second quarter, the Cowboys were discombobulated, and Washington, which had nothing to lose, was coming up with they were throwing a kitchen sink in there, and they were feeding off of that. The difference between Washington and Green Bay is Washington, once the Cowboys started getting things back in order again, they quit because their season was not going anywhere. The Green Bay Packers, they can adjust, and they're young, and say they don't know they're supposed to lose. So that's why you don't want to get them to get started. You don't want Green Bay to get started and have the game go their way, especially at AT&T Stadium where they're supposed to lose when they got nothing to lose.
I also think that, and I mentioned, kind of talking about the way that the Packers are seeing this game plan, I imagine, comparing it to that game last season between the Packers and Cowboys where the Packers win 31-28 on the road. Or sorry, in overtime is the word that I was looking for. That was at Lambeau. look, man, this offense is even more effective than it was last year. And so
and Dak has thrown only 9 picks as opposed to leading the league in picks last year.
100%. And I think you also have more ways of getting at them. And it seems like Dak is more comfortable hitting CeeDee Lamb underneath than just letting him go.
Exactly.
Even though CeeDee Lamb had 150 yards in that particular game, I think that you have that. And plus, I think there's more opportunities to try and get deep shots, even if that team is playing in such a way where they're trying to take that away. It seems like Dak Prescott, at certain times he's been a little bit, hesitant. But it seems like there's times where Dak's willing to take that shot to Jake Ferguson over the middle in that seam shot, even if it's a little tight, and throw it open. And he's been successful doing that. There's been times where they've worked, and then you find the Brandon Cooks, beater down the field, and all of a sudden there's your big play. And so I almost have more of a belief in Mike McCarthy's offense this season to be able to take on that, that safety look that's supposed to be able to be the shell coverage that won't allow you to take those shots.
Exactly.
And it's going to be incumbent upon Mike McCarthy to make sure that you get those to kind of deflate the Packers, because I think if they're not able to keep Dallas to just a simply methodical offense, if Dallas is able to get up and down and score the points like they want to and like they should, this is not going to be a challenge, I don't think, is it?
Right. And the thing about the McCarthy offense, Dak was talking about this today. I was up there. I'm already up here at the Star, but I was basically in the locker room, and they were talking about different things. And Dak was talking about how Mike McCarthy's fingerprints are all over this season, when you think it's just the players doing this or doing that. He said, no, Mike came up with that. Mike came up with that. And I also like the fact that the Cowboys' run game looked like something against Washington. Be that as it may, Washington is not the D line is not what it used to be even to start the season. It's still you still had Tony Pollard, and you still had Rico Dotto looking like they could do some things. And Tony Pollard, by the way, quietly got 1,000 yards this year. With that being said, Dak dropped something that kind of made everybody grin. He said that Ezekiel Elliott is going to be at the game in his suite. And he also mentioned that, let's say he runs for, I'm talking about Dak, if he just breaks away and runs for about 10 yards, picks up a first down, he said, I might do the feed me.
It'd be a fun little salute to a friend of his. I mean, Zeke loved him some football. Zeke, look, let me ask this question instead of saying it. Around that locker room, is there anybody that don't like Zeke that you know of?
None. And everybody loves Zeke.
Hey, man, he got time. He can come and hang out with the Cowboys.
Exactly. And he's a Cowboy for life, no matter where he's playing now.
I'd love to see what the fan reaction is to if he gets out there and does the feed me.
Yeah, exactly. If Dak does the feed me, or if he points up to the suite and does the feed me, and they get a camera shot of Zeke up there waving at him.
Well, of course, you can hear that game 3:30 Saturday or Sunday rather, right here on 105 through the Fan. Obviously, you'll have Brian Broaddus and Eric Chiafalo on the pregame show. There should be a player interview, shouldn't there, Chris Arnold?
Yes, and how about we will hear from Jake Ferguson? Ooh. And here's the angle. First of all, he's a fun interview. He grew up in Wisconsin, went to the University of Wisconsin, can't stand the Packers. Ooh. Oh, yeah. You want to hear about this.
Okay. So you'll definitely want to make sure that you tune in. Probably about 12:30, I imagine, is when the pregame starts right here on your home of the Cowboys, 105.3 The Fan. It's the Get Right here on 105 through the Fan. I'm Reginald Atatula. That is the three-time Hall of Famer Chris Arnold live from the Star in Frisco. A little bit of remote work here going on. We still got a show for you. We got you till 11. And coming up next, let's discuss the retiring coaches. Well, one of them, I'm assuming that he retired. A couple of 72-year-olds gave up the game today. Let's discuss what that means for football in general. We'll do it next on The Fan.
We have you covered, Stars fans, with exclusive content.
Kissable Dental to start 2024 off fresh. What I love about Kissable Dental is the fact that it's always pain-free, and they handle all the insurance and paperwork for you. There's no upsell or surprise fees because they have that no-bill guarantee. To claim your free teeth whitening kit, book online at KissableDental.com. KissableDental.com. The Kissable journey starts today.
The NFL playoffs live on Odyssey. Westwood One brings you all the action from Wild Card Weekend, streaming live on the free Odyssey app.
Handoff McCaffrey runs left, powers into the end zone, touchdown 49ers.
The excitement is contagious as teams start their journey towards the big game.
End zone, right side, it is caught, touchdown, Puka Nacua.
Listen to every game live from Westwood One. Get in the game and download the free Odyssey app today. AUDACY.
And it's back to the Get Right here on 105.3 The Fan. The upcoming segment is brought to you by Frankel and Frankel. Life is unpredictable. Accidents happen. Frankel and Frankel are the go-to attorneys for car and truck wrecks in DFW. If you or a loved one has been in an accident, contact Frankel and Frankel for a free consultation at truckwreck.com or call 214 or 817-333-3333.
So Get right here on 105.3 The Fan. Reginald Atatula here with you. Alongside, in a way, Chris Arnold, the three-time Hall of Famer. CA, what's happening, man?
Got you down.
There he is.
Out here at the Star.
That's right. It's weird not being able to directly look to you when I say that, but I'm always happy to know that you're with me alongside me in this program that we got going till 11 p.m.
Sir. No doubt.
That's right. You can always get involved with the program by texting into the truckwreck.com text line, 877-881-1053. You can also catch us by searching 105 through the Fan on YouTube or going to twitch.tv/DallasFanCam. We got a lot of people hanging out with us. I see Marcus in there, Jay in there in the YouTube. King Baby, Opie World, Swaggy Booties all hanging out, chatting.
That don't sound right. Swaggy Booties all hanging out.
That's right. Always hanging out. The Swaggy Booties are always hanging out. But no, here in about 20 minutes, we'll go around the NFL here on the Get Right. But in a way, this is some things that were around the NFL. But we had a couple of longtime, well-established coaches step away from the game in a way today, CA, and both of them, oddly enough, 72 years of age. Early on in the day, we saw, and I know that I think I saw it from Adam Schefter reporting, but it was the announcement that the Seattle Seahawks will no longer be coached by Pete Carroll after 14 years
dun, dun, dun.
and 10 playoff appearances and the franchise's only Super Bowl championship as well. And under his tenure, team owner Jody Allen announced that they were going to mutually agree for him to no longer be the head coach, right? And so he is now going to step into an unspecified role with the organization, which means it feels like they're giving him a soft landing. And I read that originally. I thought of it as sounds like he's kind of ready to step away at 72. Like he's been doing this a long time.
He didn't say that last week.
No, he didn't. And he also in his farewell conference, he agreed, he mutually agreed to set on a new course conversation. But he also said that he competed pretty hard, quote, to remain the head coach and ultimately, quote, went along with their intentions. So it does seem like the organization looked up and was like, hey, this might be a good time to make that move after a 9-8 season. So there's that, but then there's also news that felt like it dwarfed this one.
It did.
As later on, we found out that Nick Saban, one of the best, if not the best, college football coaches in history, won 7 national championships, turned Alabama back into a national powerhouse. He ultimately said that he is going to retire, saying that Alabama has been a special place for him and Miss Terry, his wife, and that they've enjoyed every minute of their 17 years there and becoming part of the Tuscaloosa family. But, now he is moving on. And so, see, I'm interested from your perspective, which one of these hit you the strongest? Was it Nick Saban stepping away or Pete Carroll doing so?
Well, the order was put like this. Pete Carroll better be glad his announcement came first because it got dwarfed immediately. Nick Saban, that story is now not just the biggest story in football, it's the biggest story in sports. There's nothing else to talk about today. It dwarfs it all because he's up there. Like you said, he's arguably the greatest college football coach in history. I mean, all you have to do is look at his resume. And the fact that he took his last team to the college football playoffs showed you he's relevant. They only lost 2 games. They lost to Michigan last weekend in the semifinal, and Texas knocked them off. So Nick Saban, and again, we're talking about a coach that competed in the SEC, which is arguably the best conference, top to near bottom, in college football. So what, like, oh yeah, he won all these games coaching in Boise State. I mean, dude was doing it at Alabama, where the biggest name in college football had been the head coach, Bear Bryant. They don't talk about Bear Bryant no more.
Yeah, and I think it's also worth mentioning, you said he did it in the conference that is the SEC. He did it at Alabama, a place where the expectations are kind of insane.
Exactly.
Right? Like, think of it this way. Nick Saban hadn't won a championship in, 3 seasons? Is that right? And people were starting to talk about Nick Saban a little bit. Like, and not like necessarily that it was like he's a bad coach, but just, well, maybe Nick's lost it. 3 seasons not winning a national
crazy it is.
Title.
It's worse than any other fan base, seriously. And Nick talks about it, and he's got a talk show down there, and he would take phone calls, and he would calmly cuss them out.
But this is the thing, is that's the level of expectation that Alabama always has.
Always.
But it hasn't felt like that because Nick Saban has been so good. And through not just a tough schedule consistently, they've always recruited well. And on top of that, there's been a lot of turnover on those staffs. Just constantly turning these over because people, if you want to get a coach, you might go to one of these consulting firms, but ultimately what they're going to come back with after taking hundreds of thousands of your dollars is going to tell you, hey, hire one of Nick Saban's assistants, and it'll probably go well. And that usually does, and then Nick Saban goes and finds another assistant who gets the job done. And there's those things he's had to adjust. Nick Saban always been a defensive guy, and you used to be able to just see that offense just constantly run the damn ball and grind out games and not do high-flying acrobatic things. And he came to a point where he looked up and was like, well, the game has gone to a place where your offense has to modernize, so I will modernize.
He did it at halftime of the game against Georgia with Tua, when he put in Tua over Jalen Hurts. That's when he did it.
Yeah. And
and won the national championship.
There's something to be said for all of these things, and this is just a small part of it. A dude who is an elite recruiter going to literally anybody's living room, talk to your mama, charm your grandma, bring you to Tuscaloosa, right?
But you know what? Yeah, I think what pushed him into retirement is this.
Mm-hmm.
The portal. He can't control the Wild Wild West. See, that's the Wild Wild West. That's an X factor that not only does he not necessarily have a competitive advantage, you can't tell what's going to happen next. He's 72 years old. He's not 40. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He ain't got time to do all that stuff and try to coach football games too.
I think it's a part of it for sure. Like, the landscape has shifted, and that would be another shift that he'd have to make. And I think he's capable of it, but ultimately there's something to be said for Nick Saban seems to be, in addition to like being a grouch, he seemed to be a grouch because losses gave him an opportunity to coach. He seems to love the profession of coaching and the act of, taking guys and having them grow. Alabama might be the only place in the nation that still kind of has that pipeline of guys come in young and you grow with the program, and you might sit behind somebody, but ultimately that you end up better than where when you came in. And you can't always say that. But even now you're seeing guys transfer out. And I do wonder if he looked around the landscape and was like, the thing that I love doing the most, which is, training up young men to make them better football players, and I imagine better men, it's not as easy to facilitate. But in addition to that, again, he's 72 years old and has done this for 17 seasons at Tuscaloosa. Remember, he did it at LSU before then, right? He's done it other places before then. He has a 51-year head coaching career, coach career in football. And you look around, and who is his peer? He no longer has peers in college football in general because he has done that are like similar age with similar status. They don't exist anymore. And sometimes I wonder if you're like, enough, time to rest. I've done it all.
I think that's part of it. I think that's a major part of it. It's like, again, like I said, the landscape has changed. The portal is in effect. In other words, the guys you're trying to coach up after losses, they'll say F you, and they'll go transfer to another school. In other words, the mentality is completely different of players nowadays than just even 5 or 10 years ago. With that being said, like you said, he can't go have a cold beer with a peer because even the coaches are younger nowadays. In fact, I think him doing that Affleck commercial with Coach Prime, that's probably the closest he's come to some coaches that might be his peers. And Deion is not his peer.
No. I mean, also like not
with the perception,
not in age,
you know
really,
what I mean?
And also, yeah. The crazy thing about it is anybody that you could point to as maybe his peer when you talk about winning at a high level, and you look at them and you're like, oh, actually, they're in the next generation or 2 generations off from him. The guys that you would probably look at as maybe his peers in college sports, maybe not just college football, the likes of Krzyzewski, Roy Williams, those I wouldn't even say Jim Boeheim, but like those guys recently retired. Like it's about that time in the lifespan where it's time to say goodbye. And the reason why this was shocking was more just because he was still so damn good at it. We didn't have to have the consideration maybe you put him at the pasture.
Yeah, he wasn't Joe Paterno. Where he couldn't coach on the sidelines. He's up on the top. I'm not talking about the scandal.
No, I know, but it's so hard to bring up Joe Paterno and not think about that.
Yeah, well, like I said, for those who don't know, Joe Paterno, his last few years, he couldn't even coach on the sideline. He was sitting in a chair in the press box in the coach's booth. And I can even go and say he's not even a Bear Bryant, because when Bear Bryant retired, he died about a month later. Seriously, about a month later, because that's all he did. He was a coach.
Ross. Yes, like
that's just what he coached till he died.
It meant that much to him. I do wonder like what the next step is for Nick Saban, because again, there is so many of these guys that make college football their life, and college football, unlike I think any other sport, requires so much of you. Right? There's no off season. You always when the season ends, you are now in somebody's living room trying to get the next crop of young men that are going to sustain the machine that is the college football program that you are running. And so I don't know that immediately translates to we're just going to rest by the lake or anything. So I wonder, can you see a situation where Nick Saban's on TV breaking down these college football games or something?
I can see it. Nothing is ever impossible. And again, you found out that he and Belichick had personality when they did I don't know if it's a documentary, but they did some kind of TV stuff together. Remember that, where they were just telling their stories and they were sitting around talking? I'm like, okay, that's a peer. And Belichick may be joining because he's probably not going to be back next year. But back to Nick Saban, the question going around everywhere is like, well, who's going to follow him?
Yeah.
Sark's name is being talked about because he was his offensive coordinator a few years ago. But I don't think anybody wants to be the coach to follow Saban. You want to be the coach to follow the coach that follows Saban.
Well, I feel like you got to take the job, though. Like, and that's the thing. It's you mentioned it, and we always mention it. You're hired to be fired. This feels like one of those where you just kind of got to take the opportunity to go.
Unless if you're a big name, you can just leverage it. You can get your school to pay you to stay. But if you're a big name, in other words, I'm talking about the biggest names. I'm not talking about a young buck.
Sure,
I'm talking about the biggest names out there. They're not going to follow him.
Depending on where you are, that makes
name a name.
Like Dabo Swinney is one of the people bring up a lot, and I'm like,
because he was an assistant over there.
He's always like Alabama guy. He's always seemed like, but there's something to be said. And there was a recent, like this year, they were a little shaky at one point. And they had the young man call into the program and accost Dabo right to his face, or I guess in a way.
Yeah.
And Dabo, in as nice of a way and as churchy of a way as he can, basically said, hey, don't forget where y'all were before I got here. And he has a point in making that statement. Like, Clemson was not this national power. And there's something to be said for the level of clout that gives you and the level of stability that gives you. And I don't know that you give that up for the demands that Alabama gives you, when you can still get, I think, most everything you want there. Now, some of the names that come up are maybe some younger guy. Well, I guess you probably put in a call to Kirby Smart to see if he would want to come. But I feel like that's
Georgia,
the same.
Former
feel like
assistant coach.
You've got the same thing with a lot more buy-in or a lot more equity in the stake when you've won a couple of national titles there at Georgia. But names like Dan Lanning at Oregon, who had previously, he was under Saban at Alabama, then went to Georgia with Kirby Smart, and is now at Oregon running what looks like an SEC program. He's a young guy that's come up. Kalen DeBoer, the head coach at Washington, comes up.
Yep.
James Franklin at Penn State, which I don't know why you put his name in there other than to get him another extension that he probably doesn't deserve. Mike Norvell, Marcus Freeman. There's not going to be a name that's perfect, but I can see some of those younger guys coming in. Dan Lanning seems like a great name because he can build an SEC program, but it all just feels like natural. And let me remind you again, Nick Saban is not immortal in a way when it comes to this college football thing. Immortals in this college football thing will have some level of falter to them, and I just don't think Alabama has the level of time to abide by that. So I feel like whoever comes in is going to be hired to be fired, but you kind of got to do it for the profile.
Listen to this. Notice the name that you didn't mention, and you didn't mention his name because he's sitting at home on a pile of money and don't nobody want to touch him.
Who, Herb? You mean Herb?
No. Jimbo.
Oh. Well, the reason why Jimbo doesn't come up in my mind personally, I don't know. Maybe somebody actually wants to do that. Although I don't know if he has.
No, they don't.
I don't know if he has
not
an
at
offset.
Alabama. Come on.
We mentioned with Nick Saban that he had to modernize his offense. That's the exact thing that Jimbo wouldn't do at Texas A&M.
Exactly.
That ended up getting him got.
Yep.
But you know,
like I said, he's sitting on a pile of money. He ain't doing nothing. I bet he might coach some small college or Boise State or something like that just because he likes to coach. But he ain't coaching no big-time program that's going to compete for a national championship no more because, like you said, he's set in his ways and he got a pile of money. If he can't get his way, he'll be comfortable without it.
Yeah, so I found it interesting that you have two guys that are a little older in this thing. And, I mean, not to call people just old, like 72. They've lived a good amount of life, particularly in this football thing. And also, you talk about peers in the game. Pete Carroll, if he had stayed in college football, would be one of his peers. And now he is also, in a funny way, on the same day, kind of stepping away from that on-the-field football role. So a couple of guys, highly esteemed football coaches, I mean, kind of college football coaches, they're stepping away from the field. Kind of interesting to see on this January 10th. 2024. It's the Get right here on 105 through the Fan. I feel like we got to talk more about Pete Carroll because it could have ripple effects that could affect your Dallas Cowboys. We'll talk about that and more as we go around the NFL next on the Get Right.
Coming up on the next KNC Masterpiece, how the Cowboys-Packers game is making.
Optimizing your testosterone can optimize your mood, drive, mental clarity, sexual wellness. If you have achy joints, hair loss, want an IV drip, need muscle mass therapy, Men's T Clinic can help you. We talk about depth in a lineup. Well, Men's T Clinic has an awesome lineup of treatment plans. In fact, they have a full-service menu at menstclinic.com. Stop by one of their 5 DFW locations. Men's T Clinic, let's get back to being you.
Tolos, it's been a heck of a Rangers ride, and the celebration will continue at Globe Life Field for the World Series edition of the Rangers 2024 Awards Dinner presented by Coca-Cola. It's Friday evening, January 26. Awards will be given out to Corey Seager, Josh Young, Leody Taveras, Nathaniel Lowe, Dane Dunning, and Gold Gloves presented to Lowe, Jonah Hyman, and Adolis Garcia. You can be a part of this special evening by purchasing a table or an individual ticket at rangers.com/awards dinner.
And it's back to the Get Right here on 105.3 The Fan. The upcoming segment is brought to you by Classic Chevrolet. Why do so many Texans love Classic Chevrolet and Grapevine? They've got the goods. More new Silverados than anyone with incredible savings. Why go anywhere else? Go see them today or visit ClassicChevrolet.com. This is Texas. This is Classic Chevrolet. Find new roads, relax, and enjoy the difference.
Some good and bad news. I'll start with the bad. The Wild have scored at the AAC, so they are on the board. The good news, Jason Robertson's on the board as well. It's 4-1 in favor of your Dallas Stars at the AAC. About halfway to go in the third period. They're looking like they're going to handle business. And as I say that, make that 5-1 in favor of your Dallas Stars. Fantastic night. They just needed a little bit of a kickstart, and Wild are giving them that in this home and home situation.
Matthew in goal again?
Yeah, Matt Murray still in goal. Can't say that he's holding them goalless tonight, but he's still doing a good job at the AAC. It's Get Right here on 105 through the Fan. I'm Reginald Atatula. That voice you hear is Chris Arnold.
Got you down.
The 3-time Hall of Famer broadcasting from the Star in Frisco. How's your broadcast position feel like?
Nice and cozy. Just cozy.
It sounds like you got a sip of tea in there. You sound like you're having a nice, like some cocoa in the ski lodge or something.
A little bit. You know, it's gonna be cold this weekend, so might as well take care of that voice.
Absolutely. It is absolutely going to be cold, and I already start to feel it in my voice when it comes to the chili, so I'm definitely going to get some tea once I get off the air. But we're not doing that till 11. We got the show rolling on all the way till 11 for you right here on The Fan. And right now, we should go around the NFL and the Get Right. And we begin doing something that hasn't been done on the show in a little while. But we mentioned earlier Pete Carroll stepping off of the field for the Seattle Seahawks. And you know what? I could tell you about the story, but I wouldn't do it as much justice as cut number 12 here. Ian Rappaport, can you tell us about Pete Carroll being out as a Seahawks head coach?
And if we turn our focus to where they might go from here, I think it's pretty obvious. Keep an eye on Dan Quinn, the Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator. Obviously has a ton of familiarity with Seattle, still well-liked, still has really good relationships, and I think it's fair to say he's going to be one of the focuses of the search for general manager John Schneider, who now, along with Jody Allen, is in charge of the search. And really, the second half of this year, probably the last month or so, Schneider has quietly been doing research on potential head coach candidates just in case this ended up happening. And this was always going to be something where if Pete Carroll decided it was in the best interest of the organization, and if Jody Allen decided sort of together Pete Carroll would move on, Schneider would have to conduct a coaching search for the first time in his tenure as general manager. Wanted to make sure he is ready. Now this has happened. He is, of course, ready. And, really, I think this has been, a possibility over the course of the last several years. Now official and final, Pete Carroll out as head coach, steps upstairs to be still involved in football, but obviously a new person on the sideline.
Now, CA, Rappaport reporting there that Dan Quinn, and that is the only name that has been reported in that direct, association with that Seattle Seahawks job as Pete Carroll was moved off of the sideline today. Does it feel like Dan Quinn is definitely not going to return as the Cowboys DC next year then?
It never is smart to be definitive.
Okay, fair enough. You sounded very much like Jerry Jones right there.
Well, it's just real smart. I mean, in this day and age, somebody could have been definitive and said the Rangers would never beat the Astros.
Yeah.
And guess where they would be? You see what I'm saying?
Wrong.
Uh-huh. But all indications are he should be their leading candidate because he's homegrown.
Yeah.
He was the guy that co-created the Legion of Boom. He was the director of it, and they went to the Super Bowl back-to-back. It wasn't his fault they didn't win the second one. And then when he was the head coach at Atlanta, it wasn't his fault that they lost that game, even though he was the head coach. Kyle Shanahan got cute. At the same time, Dan Quinn he's got property in Southern California, got property in Hawaii. If he doesn't go to the Seahawks, if he leaves the Dallas Cowboys, I bet it's somewhere on the West Coast. But I think it would be a natural fit. I think he and Schneider are good friends. It just all depends on if they feel like, okay, he can. I mean, he's a natural fit. It's not like they have to teach him the way Seattle does things.
Okay, so
I don't know if he's gonna leave.
Right. I heard what you were saying. I just realized that I lied to you earlier, and I hate lying to you. So let me correct that. It's Scott Wedgwood between the pipes for the Stars. I don't know how that eluded me for so long. It's actually Scott Wedgwood.
That's why they gave up a goal.
I know. I'm just saying.
Wow.
His legs are not totally.
Wow.
Fresh.
No, but I hear you. I think that, there's a lot of things that would make this make sense, this move for Dan Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've seen a lot of people talk about, time for Al Harris to become the defensive coordinator, or maybe Joe Witt, who I know a lot of people this time last year were looking at Joe Witt as well. Okay, hopefully wherever Dan Quinn goes, if he goes, he does not take Joe Witt, so you can kind of keep some continuity there.
Can I tell you a quick story?
Please do.
Why you can't just assume, and it seems like it's all going to add up and then something could happen and make it fall apart. You couldn't have told people a few years ago, before they hired Wade Phillips as the Cowboys' new head coach, that it was not going to be Norv Turner.
Mm-hmm.
I was down there covering the Super Bowl in Miami, and Norv and Jerry were hand in hand, making all the rounds. It was just about a done deal. They're bringing him back. He was the offensive coordinator. Troy Aikman, of course, loved him back in those days when he was the coordinator. He was always, quote unquote, a cowboy in a way. And it was just about bringing him back because he was available. He was coming back, and then he and Jerry had one small disagreement. Norv Turner wanted to hire, who's the coach that just got fired from Washington?
Who, Ron Rivera?
Rivera's brother was coaching for the Bears. He was the defensive coordinator for the Bears. And that's who Norv wanted, and that's who was playing in the Super Bowl, is the Bears versus the Saints. Or Bears versus the Colts or the Saints, one of them. The Bears were in the Super Bowl. And he wanted Rivera. And Jerry said, they were asking Rivera, well, can you coach this 3-4 defense? And he said, no, I coach a 4-3. And I'm not going to. And Jerry said, no, I paid too much money for all these different kind of players because it's a 4-3 defense. Parcells 3-4 defense. Parcells built it this way. And Norv said, I can't come if I don't have my defensive coordinator as my back, because that's where I messed up at San Diego and at Washington. So it fell apart at the end. It fell apart just when everybody thought Norv Turner was coming back, old friend, to revive the Cowboys and take them to the promised land. So just like I said, this is a similar situation of, guess what? Dan Quinn coming back home, blah, 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 blah. And then something could come up. They might not agree on the offensive coordinator.
I hear you. But that Dan Quinn mentioned as probably the first name to consider as the Seattle Seahawks, let it be known that Pete Carroll will no longer be the head coach. Now, somewhat tangential to that, I guess. I forgot what I was going to say. I'm not going to be completely honest. But we'll continue around the NFL, as it seems like there was a lot of folks trying to figure out what are the Minnesota Vikings going to do. Kirk Cousins is a free agent, and it seemed like most people had the feeling that, yeah, he's not going to be back. Hell, they probably would have traded him if he did not get hurt during the season. Yep. Well, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensa, the general manager in Minnesota, said, quote, I think I've been pretty consistent with that being wanting Kirk Cousins back. I thought we were playing pretty good football before he got injured. It's the most important position in sports. He went further to say, now, ultimately, it comes down to, can you find an agreement that works for all sides, and all those things. But as a player, it's certainly my intention to have him back here. So Kirk Cousins remaining the Minnesota Vikings quarterback. Is that probably the best way that they have to play this?
They have to play it that way. That doesn't mean he's going to be. You throw away your leverage if we say we're shopping him. You see what I'm saying? He's a good quarterback. I mean, he could be a great quarterback at times after 3 p.m. I mean, before 3 p.m. But I'm kidding. But seriously, it's like poker. It's like you're talking about draft picks. You know, if you put on the cap of an observer and say, okay, this is a draft pick, who we're going to pick at this spot, You can't show your hand. They can't say that they're moving on from Kirk Cousins when all indications in the offseason were this is his last year at Minnesota.
Well, I mean, at this point, I believe he's out of contract, so they'd have to get a contract done with him for this season. But we'll keep watching. I know there's a lot of people that were wondering who could they possibly draft. Maybe, just maybe, the draft is not something that they consider. Maybe they just keep Kirk Cousins on.
And maybe they just bring in Russell Wilson.
I mean, I can't imagine you bringing in Russell Wilson unless Russell Wilson is willing to take backup money or something to that effect, which I don't know. Maybe he's at that point in his life where he's found a level of alignment. I don't know.
Who knows? That was Vegas had Minnesota as one of the destinations when the word came out that they were lowballing Russ and wanted him to take a pay cut.
Sure. But I mean,
that was the only reason I brought it up is because Vegas had it.
And I imagine that's in some capacity as a level of starter, but we'll see. There's a lot of time in this offseason to see that come to fruition. Real quick before we go on around the NFL, I found this interesting. If you're a fan of the show Succession, a little bit of family infighting with money, the NFL got some of that for you as well. As the Houston Texans, apparently there's a little bit of efforts by the owner's sons to have her declared incapacitated and needing a guardian. Now, if you're familiar with like Britney Spears, what happened there, that's somewhat what seems to be trying to be happening here. Robert Carey McNair Jr., a son of Bob McNair, filed an application for appointment of a guardian for Janice McNair, who is 87 and who is
his mom.
Yeah, his mom, in Harris County, which is where Houston is located. The application, details his reasons for seeking to have her declared incapacitated and was temporarily sealed. But with that being the case, Janice McNair and her son Cal McNair, who is the chairman of the Texans right now, basically runs this, they were shocked that the son came through. And they said that they were, quote, drastic and unwarranted measures of alleging his mother is incapacitated and seeking to terminate her rights and appoint himself as the guardian to control her personal, financial, and medical decisions. So a little bit of a family infighting in the NFL.
Like you said, it sounds like a TV show.
Doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like it sounds like, well, I can do better than what Cal's doing. Let me be it. How do I make that happen? You are not fit to make these decisions, mama.
Mm-hmm.
Would you want to see this as a television show?
Of course.
You're like, I would watch the mess.
I was about to say, who doesn't love a good power struggle?
Exactly. And family too.
That's great. I imagine that D'Amico's like, just don't talk to me. Let me do the football.
Right.
Just let me do it. Y'all figure that out. As long as the checks keep clearing and I can do this football. But yes, that's around the NFL here on the Get Right here on 105.3 The Fan. Coming up next, there's 14 playoff teams as we have headed into the postseason for the NFL. What are the myths around them, and can we bust them? Let's talk about myth busting the playoff teams. Myths around them. We'll discuss that next on The Fan.
Always a welcome sign for this clubhouse. Featuring breaking sports news.
now through the end of the month. Pay no interest for 5 years and get 50% off all window styles. Do not wait. Let Window Nation show you all the options to fit your needs and budget. It's easy. Simply call 866-90Nation or visit windownation.com to get started.
Hear from inside the Star, the Cowboys Report, Monday through Friday at 9:20 a.m. and 12:20 p.m. Brought to you by Tom Thumb, the official supermarket and pharmacy of the Dallas Cowboys.
Winter's here. Talk to the pros at Window Nation. Replacing those old windows is easier and more affordable than you think, with no interest for 5 years and 50% off all window styles. Don't wait. Simply call 866-90Nation or visit windownation.com.
Your turn it on, leave it on. Home of America's team is 105.3 The Fan.
Hello, baby.
KRLD FM and HD1, Dallas Fort Worth.
Always live on the free Odyssey app. From our fan studio, secured by DFWsecurity.com, it's time for the Get Right on 105.3 The Fan.
Yes, indeed. It is the Get right here on 105.3 The Fan. Woo-wee. I'm Reginald Atatula. That voice that you hear there is the sound of three-time Hall of Famer Chris Arnold.
Got you down.
Broadcasting live from the Star in Frisco. Appreciate you rocking with us on this Wednesday evening. Ross Lubinsky is on the ones and twos. Thank you, sir. We got you till 11, and coming up in about 20 minutes, we'll go around the association, talk about some of the things that are happening in the basketball world. In the hockey world, the Stars, there's just a lot of scoring in this third period. There's a lot of scoring happening. Some for your Stars, some against your Stars. Don't worry about it, but it is 6-2. A lot of scoring in this one. Tyler Sagan's gotten involved on the goal scoring action. Niles Lundqvist, just all of them involved in the scoring. 6-2, one shy of my perpetual ask of scoring 7 goals. And that would just make me happy. So we're close to just Reginald's happiness.
It's a real puck party.
There you go. That's right. But yes, I wanted to talk about this in the NFL. We got 14 teams that are into the playoffs that have qualified for postseason play in the National Football League. And, there's myths around all of them. Dan Graziano of ESPN has attempted to, dispel the various myths that exist around the teams in the NFL. And so, Chris, we're going to have this be a choose-your-own-adventure situation. How's that sound?
Okay, sounds good.
You point me to one of the teams in the postseason here, and we'll talk a little bit about the myth and why it is that Dan Graziano says that it is in fact a myth. Let's get smarter about all these teams.
Let's start at the top with our local legends, the Dallas Cowboys.
The Dallas Cowboys, the myth being that the Cowboys just beat up on bad teams, right? Just a bully element. Obviously, they played 7 games throughout the season that were against the Giants, obviously twice, Jets, Patriots, Panthers, Commandos, obviously twice, and those are, not good teams. They won those games by an average of 30 points, 30.4 points to be exact. And the Cowboys maybe struggled a little bit against better teams. Margins of the games weren't as large, clearly. But that's reasonable, right? Like that happens from time to time. Now, the myth being, again, that they can't, and that Dak Prescott in particular, can't stand up against better teams. Now, Dan Graziano gets to this point. Prescott obviously has better numbers against bad teams, but most quarterbacks do again. His QBR against teams with losing records was an 80.7. Very good. His QBR against teams with winning records was a 63.4, which clearly, big difference, right? About 17 points. Now, the thing about that, though, is that 63.4 against all the other just regularly QBRs would rank 7th in the league. So if you just took his performance against the worst teams that they played, the best teams that they played, he would still stack up as the 7th best quarterback, and all those other teams had their good, bad, all of that in there still. And so with that being the case, 19 of his touchdowns were thrown against the teams, the 9 teams with sub 500 records, and 17 of those were in the 8 games against the winning teams. So, he put up numbers against good teams. The numbers obviously get inflated for anyone when they play bad teams, but Dak Prescott still played fairly well against all of the teams all the way across the season, which is why he has numbers that allow you to talk about whether he is being snubbed in the MVP conversation.
Again, 4,500 yards, 9 interceptions only, 38 touchdowns. Nobody else had 38, and he's the only quarterback since way back in the 1930s, I believe, 1940s, to lead the league in interceptions and followed up with leading the league in touchdowns. Dude's doing something right. And again, there's a lot of people who this all or nothing, right? No, he sucks. Just because he's not the best, he doesn't have arm talent like Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, then he just sucks. No, he doesn't suck. He's a top 10 quarterback, and this year he had an exceptional year.
Yes, there you go. So that's the myth and the busting of said myth for the Dallas Cowboys.
He doesn't have a ring.
I just need you to pull that. Just pull that audio. It's hilarious to me. I would like to make that my text tone just so that I can smile every once in a while. CA, any other teams in the postseason that you want to?
Yes, give me the 49ers.
The San Francisco 49ers.
That's the team that knocked out the Cowboys last 2 years after 12-5 seasons.
The myth being Brock Purdy's numbers are inflated by all of that yak, the yards after catch.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Debo and Christian McCaffrey.
You mentioned and George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk, all those guys. Right? The Niners were number 1 in the league in yards after catch per reception. So that's part of these things. And then obviously, you know, we always still hold on to the fact that Brock Purdy was literally the last pick in the 2022 draft. So we're all trying to kind of confirm why that is for ourselves. But the Niners do have a lot of yak. However, Purdy is, you know, 6th. The Niners are 6th in the league in receiving yards and 4th in yards after catch. They get 47.8% of their receiving yards after the catch. The Chiefs get 61.1% of their receiving yards after the catch. And I think there's a level of acknowledgement that Patrick Mahomes is not being, you know, just simply a system quarterback. QBR directly measures the quarterback's contribution, trying to isolate that. And Brock Purdy's 72.8 was the highest in the NFL this season overall. And so he also ranked 7th in air yards per pass attempt. So, you know, he's still been very good this season and ultimately going to be a quarterback and a team to contend with in the NFC and in the playoffs in general.
So you're saying he can throw a deep ball?
I mean, he can when he does. And look,
doesn't have to, but he can.
Yeah, and I still want to acknowledge the role that Kyle Shanahan's offense plays in this. We've seen guys like C.J. Beathard and Nick Mullins look serviceable in it. So I'm not trying to say that Brock Purdy is a world beater, but he does need to be respected for what he's capable of doing within that system.
Agreed. Give me the Miami Dolphins.
The Miami Dolphins, as my computer decides to buffer right when I go to it. Let's see. Where is it? My apologies.
It happens. It's called technology.
That's
Wi-Fi.
right.
We understand.
Of course, it wants me to look bad, and they're just conspiring against me.
Just call it that the Gators slipped through the other room, the control room, and came into the studio.
That's right. Also, your Stars scored a 7th goal. 7 goals. You love to see it. Guaranteed win when you score 7 goals. That is a stat courtesy of me. But yes, the myth for the Miami Dolphins is that they have a top-level defense under first-year coordinator Vic Fangio. Miami won the Fangio sweepstakes last offseason. Obviously made sure they got him after finishing 24th in the league in defensive efficiency, 21st in defensive EPA last year. This season, 15th in efficiency, 13th in EPA. They sacked opposing quarterbacks 8% of the time, thereabouts, which is second best in the league. But the defense has improved, but they've played the unit that played most of the season isn't the one that they'll take into the postseason because they have a lot of injuries, right? Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb are both out for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So prior to week 17, Bradley Chubb had 54 quarterback pressures this season. No other Dolphins player had more than 31. So like missing him is going to be huge. 6 forced fumbles for him through that week 17 as well. So like they're missing who is, you know, the heart and soul of that defense. So the defense that you're thinking that you saw during the season that was top level is not the defense that they're going to play with. And so that's ultimately maybe not even the myth. That feels like that's the wrong way of saying it, but ultimately it's just going to be something that could be a misconception if you're not really careful thinking about what the Dolphins have.
Put it like this, I don't think they stand a chance in cold Kansas City this weekend. And then one reason why is I'm not sure Tua is a cold-weather quarterback because he grew up in Hawaii, he went to college at Alabama, and he's playing in Miami.
That's interesting. I think also he's been really dependent on getting to his first read and getting the ball out quickly. Kansas City's defense with Steve Spagnuolo is notorious for making it hard on quarterbacks. And so it'll be interesting what happens when you, get after the quarterback, because we saw, even when the Cowboys got after him, he got a little frazzled and made it a little more difficult on him. But then also the ways in which the picture keeps changing on you and all those things with the Kansas City defense. Is he going to be able to navigate that to the highest extent that you need him to play for that Miami team to be successful? That'll be something to be seen. Any other teams that you want to see or want to talk about here, CA?
Since we mentioned the Kansas City Chiefs in Miami, give me the Chiefs.
All right, the Kansas City Chiefs come in as the number 3 seed, and the myth being that if the Chiefs receivers would stop dropping the ball, the offense would be just fine, which is kind of interesting to think about, right? They led the league this season with 38 drop passes, which is 3 more drop passes in second place. And if you just filter for wide receivers, the Chiefs still lead in drops. So we're not just talking about tight ends or anything like this. Is all the way around. And the drops with the receivers are clearly a problem, as I mentioned, but they're not the only problem. Travis Kelce is having literally the worst season of his career.
Okay, I knew you were going to go there. Is it because he's distracted by the Swifties and Swift?
I wouldn't say that.
That's the myth, though, right?
Yeah, that's an easy one to talk about. And so he did not reach 1,000 yards for the first time since 2015. Average of 10.6 yards per catch, which is by far a career low. And the Chiefs' offensive tackles are also the most penalized in the league. So, like, you have all of these various things that point to a diminished, star player, star receiving option for Patrick Mahomes in Travis Kelce. And maybe not the smartest play from some of your offensive line that you have paid very well and you need to be there to protect your offense, and then also your wide receivers. So all these things together, there's issues all the way around this offense that make it tough. And it's one of the reasons why you've seen them had to try and simplify the offense. It's one of the reasons why you've seen them have struggles throughout the season. It's not just Kadarius Toney out here lining up off sides.
Well, Kadarius Toney messed up Travis Kelce's incredible touchdown play, which would have been the touchdown of the year.
100%, right? And that's some of the things where we talk about being disciplined, being, precise. That's one of those plays that typifies that, and that's one of the reasons why, particularly in the postseason, you have to be on your P's and Q's, because you negate a big play like that, and that changes the game.
Sure does. Tyreek Hill would have never done that. And by the way, Tyreek Hill can handle this Kansas City weather, but can Tua get it to him?
It'll be something to be seen. Is there one more that you might want to look at?
Yeah, let's slide in one more. Philadelphia, since they are on the radar because they're in free fall mode.
The Philadelphia Eagles, who, as you mentioned, free fall mode, the myth being that the Eagles' pass rush is fearsome, right? We talk about the ways in which, the spine of the defense has been weak. That front line has not been as good as you wanted to. If you're looking at this team and you consider that last year they had 70 sacks, which led the league. They returned Hassan Riddick, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, added Nolan Smith, and somehow you look around, the Eagles finished the regular season with 43 sacks this year. And that's right in the middle. They rank 6th in pass rush win rate, which is an ESPN stat that kind of gives you an idea of how much they win in pass rush, which is honestly down last year about 5 percentage points. And so you have this drop off in pass rush. And so the opponent QBR is literally the 3rd highest in the league. So opponent quarterbacks are able to play fairly well against this pass rush for the Eagles, which means they can go and attack that linebacker spot that is not that solid. They can go and attack those safeties and the places in which you have guys that are having to come up and fill for the CJ Gardner-Johnsons of the world that you allowed to go elsewhere. So the pass rush isn't as fearsome, and it's allowing other teams to now take advantage of the other holes that have developed in your defense.
Put it like this. They got a good defense, but the biggest defensive piece that they lost was the defensive coordinator who went to Arizona, who whooped their ass 2 weeks ago.
So there you go. Those are some of busting some of the myths of the teams in the postseason, including your Dallas Cowboys. One of those being that, Dak Prescott only beats up on the bad teams. No. He hoops against the good teams too. Now, would you consider the Packers a bad team, a good team, CA?
I would consider them a surprise team.
Okay, very good.
I don't think they're a bad team at all. I think they're a young team that has nothing to lose, and they navigated their way out of September and got good.
It's the Get Right here on 105.3 The Fan. Reginald Atatula, Chris Arnold with you on this evening. Coming up next, let's go around the association where there's an extension for a star player and a coach melting down. That's always fun. We'll do that next on The Fan.
The more you listen, the harder we grind. The headlines are created here on DFW Sports Station 105.3.
You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
Football and Miller Lite, America's greatest pairing. Can cracks at kickoff, tailgates going way past postgame. You never forget the way some things taste. Tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. 2023 Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Frustrated by the DIY cameras or smart gadgets you bought online? Just send them back. DFW Security has affordable, superior technology with professional installation and local support for your home or business. DFWsecurity.com.
And it's back to the Get Right here on 105.3 The Fan. The upcoming segment is brought to you by Frankel and Frankel. Life is unpredictable. Accidents happen. Frankel and Frankel are the go-to attorneys for car and truck wrecks in DFW. If you or a loved one has been in an accident, contact Frankel and Frankel for a free consultation at truckwreck.com or call 214 or 817-333-3333.
So Get right here on 105.3 The Fan. Reginald Attitula, Chris Arnold, who's broadcasting live from the Star in Frisco.
Got you down.
Appreciate you rocking with us here on Wednesday. It has gone final at the AAC. Your Stars with a 7-2 win over the visiting Minnesota Wild. That allows your Stars to sit again or get some points, get a little bit closer to the Colorado Avs in the Western Conference in the Central Division. Stars now 24-11-5, just 2 points shy of those Avs. And so, yeah, great win. Big 7 goals. And we continue to winning ways. What is that, a 2-game win streak at this point for your Dallas Stars now? And they will have an opportunity to continue that as they continue on. I believe that's on, what is the 12th? My days are already eluding me. That's Friday, right?
Yeah, 2 days Friday.
Good. That's a great showing for me, not knowing what day it is. But yes, 2 days from now, Friday, they'll welcome into the Nashville Predators. So yeah, that'll be fun.
I tell you what, not knowing what day it is, that's kind of an occupational hazard in this industry.
Yeah.
But you know what week really screwed me up? The week of that Lions game on the Saturday. That threw me for a loop that week.
Yeah, see, hey, how often does that happen to you where you're just like, where am I? What day is it?
It happens quite a bit. No, just kidding. It put like this over the holidays, the days were blurring because all these different games are going on, and it's like, wait, where am I? What?
Yeah. Well, I have now reoriented. Friday, the Stars will be welcoming the Nashville Predators, who they're ahead of in the Central Division. And so, yeah, opportunity to add another win to this win streak and make it like a true win streak. Once you get to 3, we can really feel good about a win streak. So we'll see what happens there. But right now, let's go around the association here on the Get Right. And CA, I have a feeling that you heard this audio, but I love it so much because it gives me an opportunity to say a coach's name that's really fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
And 2, if I think we could talk about NBA officiating, which is something I know everybody loves to talk about, as the Toronto Raptors and the Los Angeles Lakers played last night. And, you know, the Raptors were able to get a win, 132-131. Oh, sorry. Then went the other way. The Lakers got a win over the Raptors. There we go. Because otherwise, why would my man be so damn mad? But the Lakers shot 23 free throws in the fourth quarter, which just seems like a lot. And you know who else thought that was the case? Darko Rajakovic, who is the head coach of the Toronto Raptors. I'm okay with you if you feel like if you did not know that. But Darko Rajakovic is I was about to call him the manager, but he is the head coach of the Raptors. And this is what he had to say to the idea that the Lakers got all them damn free throws in the fourth quarter.
What happened tonight, this is completely BS. This is shame. Shame for the referees, shame for the league to allow this. 23 free throws for them, and we get 2 free throws in the fourth quarter. Like, how to play the game. I understand respect for all stars and all of that, but we have star players on our team as well. How's possible that Scotty Barnes, who is all-star caliber player in this league, he goes every single time to the rim with force and trying to get to the rim without flopping and not trying to get foul calls. He gets 2 free throws for the whole game. How's that possible? How you gonna explain that to me? They had to win tonight? If that's the case, just let us know so we don't show up for the game. Just give them a win. But that was not fair tonight. And this is not happening first time for us. Scotty Barnes is going to be all-star. He's going to be the face of this league. And what's happening over here during whole season, I've been calling it back, it's a complete crap.
CA,
Yeah.
what you got to say to that? Darko Rajakovic, whom someone asked, where is he from? He is Serbian.
Yeah, he's got the same accent as Boban. He says happening, just like Boban says happening. And Boban says, happy birthday, Wooly Wooly. Happy birthday.
Yeah, you got to really put that hair on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Darko was indeed hot. Was there?
But he got a point.
Okay, that's
But
what I
welcome
wanted
to
to
the
get
NBA, Darko.
But do you like his way of going about this? Like, obviously, it seems like he's gonna get that fine. I have a feeling that he knew he was gonna get that fine, and so he went for his money's worth.
He's a very smart guy.
But the
knew.
idea that, hey man, I understand respect the stars, but what about our star, Scotty Barnes? You think that one was the way to go on this?
But that is his star, but he's not going to be the best star in the NBA like he was saying. The problem for him is he's trying to make a point, but he didn't have anybody on his squad that he could like throw back at him, like Steph Curry. You know, Steph Curry never got those free throws. He ain't got no Steph Curry. He got Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes is going to be good, but he ain't there yet.
Now, the one thing that I did take to in this clip, CA, was there are instances where you get games where there's just free throw disparity gets so big that it makes you scratch your head. But
Right.
At least for me, because I'm very much like I don't want to complain about the refs. Sometimes you can explain that away in a way because one team is clearly more aggressive getting downhill and you will see fouls. Whereas maybe one team is not getting downhill. Maybe they're pulling up for shots and it's like, all right, maybe fouls aren't coming.
They scared of the paint.
Right. He made a point that is right, is like, hey man, Scotty Barnes is going to the hoop. He's going strong to the rack. Yeah. And if that's the case, likelihood is there's going to be some fouls in there. So how did he not come away with some fouls? There's a valid point there, isn't there?
There is. I mean, look at Lucas for a few years. That's why he was arguing with the refs so hard. He was getting beat up. You can see the marks on his body. But, they didn't call a thing. And again, it's just is what it is.
Now,
I'm not saying it's right, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like them calling a Euro step continuation when some of those Euro steps are 3 or 4 steps.
Right. Now, with that being the case, I do want, and we've talked about this with Micah in football. We've talked about this. I do wonder, like, at what point do you need to step up and like make your voice be heard to see if you can get the refs to respond? And then at what point does that become problematic? Because we've talked about that with Luka, where it feels like now he might not be getting some things because of possibly the reputation that he has for being
crying.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. Dirk actually said this before they hired Jason Kidd, when Rick Carlisle was the head coach and Luka was in foul trouble at the end of the regular season. And everybody was wondering if he might get suspended and cost him some kind of matchup with the Clippers. And Dirk said this on a broadcast or something. It was just really good. He said, what Luka needs to do is be like Jay Kidd. And that is, you can say the same things to the ref, but put your hand by your mouth and don't show them up. It's the showing them up that gets you the technicals. There's a way to do this. In other words, everybody knows it's subjective because it's referees, and they're human beings. It goes on in baseball, hockey, and in football as well. Everybody's got some kind of complaint, or some of these officials have tendencies. Mark Cuban wanted it to be a science, and he was getting fined on the regular because he's always turning in the refs and putting in the report and showing the replays, and to no avail, because they're human beings. And so it was almost like at one point where Maverick players were like, Mark, just don't say nothing during the playoffs. Something, Mark, because the referee's going to be mad at us because of you. And, that's because you got subjective human beings making calls.
Right. And
at least they've got the replay review now in the game. And,
sure.
The fans can see it, and you can kind of see, we got that one wrong. And they're not opposed to being, okay, I got that one wrong.
Yeah. Well, I imagine that fine number is going to come down. And ultimately, hey man, like I hope that works in some regard of helping him get a little bit more fair, or at least what he would deem more fair treatment for Scotty Barnes and the rest.
Yeah, they put
the
the word in their ear. I'd rather it like that at a press conference than during the game. Now, sometimes coaches will do that during the game because they want to get tossed to make their players play better.
Yeah, but that was after the right.
That's what I was saying. It's better in the press conference. That's why I prefer it. You might get a fine, but at least the point is made, and the fans or whoever's trying to read your lips, it's like, no, that's not working. It's not going to happen during the game because the ref's going to double down.
All right. Well, elsewhere around the association, we found out today that Kawhi Leonard signed an extension. The terms of it, 3 years, $153 million. I mean, Kawhi Leonard is an interesting player because we're seeing him, and this year it's been one of the most healthy years that he's had in the last, handful of them. But when he's playing, and as he is right now, he is still an incredible basketball player. This would be the final season of his contract, and so they give him 3 years. Is there anything that you can kind of feel out of that deal, right? Like $153 million, still getting that average annual value of about $50 million, but they wouldn't do anything longer than 3.
I don't blame him because of his age, and also, unfortunately, his body does break down. But they got a new arena that's being built. You got to have a star. One thing about Kawhi, he never, ever wanted to play basketball outside of California, outside of L.A. area, and so he's home. So I think it was a mutual advantageous situation. I have no problem with it being only 3 years. I think Kawhi does too, and Kawhi is a straight-up superstar when he's healthy. Everybody knows that. But unfortunately, if he's not injured, he's load managing to not get injured. And that's telling the truth on his body, which is you're a phenomenon when you're healthy. We can't risk more than 3 years.
Well, I mean, luckily this year he's been playing pretty consistently for the Clippers. And I think also one thing that factors in is, well, obviously you have a star player. He plays well. You got to have him on your team. But I wonder how much the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of this all plays in, because that's the player who they traded to be able to get Paul George to pair with Kawhi Leonard. And they have not gotten close to the goal that they had in putting those two together. And you've traded away a player who is now likely going to be all NBA.
Well, you got to remember what you just started with.
Mm-hmm.
There have been injuries, if not just Kawhi, but Paul George as well. So those are part of the circumstances. They knew that both of them have history of injury.
There you go.
And so, it is what it is, but both players wanted to come back home to L.A., and they have butts to put in seats, and you have to have superstars to compete against the Lakers. You can't have a young and upcoming who might be. We're talking about competing with L.A. fans who are used to superstars playing for the Lakers, so Ballmer had to do what he had to do.
Well, yep, they ultimately do that. 3 years, $153 million. Seems like Kawhi Leonard will remain a Los Angeles Clipper, and they've been good this year, man.
Yeah, they have.
They started
slid it. First they struggled, and now they're on a roll.
Yeah,
but guess what? I've always liked regular season Harden. It's playoff Harden that I can't handle. He just disappoints. His legs get tired. That three don't drop no more.
Right, and I imagine that there's a level of safety net in that, because in those playoffs you probably give the ball to Kawhi Leonard and say, you don't need James Harden to be as consistent, I guess.
He doesn't have to carry a team.
There you go. Elsewhere around the association, real quick, Chris, were you ever interested in like trading cards as a kid?
Not really, but go ahead.
Well, I know that there's various people that are, and if you are, or if you like LeBron or basketball, maybe be interested in this. As LeBron James, he has a deal with Fanatics, the clothing and sports company. Mm-hmm. And apparently there's also a deal to feature a trading card with him and his son, Bronny James.
Hey, collector's item.
So it's going to be a one-of-one card that features LeBron in his high school St. Vincent St. Mary's uniform, and then also Bronny James in his USC card. And it's, signed by LeBron, and it's part of a new multi-year trading card partnership with Fanatics Collectibles. So one of the things I find fascinating about this is just we really have seen LeBron go through this whole evolution from superstar child to now, having a superstar child and all those things. And we've seen that. I saw a video earlier today, him with his flip phone at the WWE, and we're so far away from that. But also the ways in which LeBron James is becoming an enterprise is still kind of fascinating to me.
He's a brand.
100%. And so that's been wild to watch happen. But yes, if you are so inclined, I have a feeling that it's going to be a lot of money for you to get involved in that, but that's also available. And
yeah, he makes amazing business deals. I mean, low key. I mean, we can go down the list of all the different things that he's been involved in that are not basketball related. They're extremely successful.
Yeah.
Lay's Pizza is one of them.
Yes, that's true. He was invested in that fairly early in, if I remember correctly as well. How about this person who is hoping to return to success after returning from suspension? Draymond Green in San Francisco earlier today. And tell me if you believe Dre in this regard. He's avowing a commitment to playing without the quote-unquote antics, right? Quote being, antics is something that got me here. And so when I look back on these situations, it's like, can you remove these antics? I'm very confident I can remove the antics. And I'm very confident that if I do remove the antics, no one's worried about how I play the game of basketball. No one's worried about how I carry myself in the game of basketball, but it's the antics. So that's my focus. Do you think that Draymond Green can get back to being a valued part of that Warriors team without the antics, as he calls them?
No. And the reason I say that is because I think it's part of the package. It'd be different if he's only been doing it lately.
Yeah.
It's always been a part of, in other words, maybe that's what the passion is. Because sometimes, there are guys who are off the court or off the field or whatever. They're regular guys. Damakang Su. Put them on a football field, and they don't know there's a line you can't cross. I always put Draymond in that, and it's because of the passion. I mean, literally, they could have three-peated if he didn't, punch up LeBron James or step over him, whatever happened. All I know is his fault, and that's why he recruited Kevin Durant. But that's just who he is. And so I can't imagine him suddenly not being himself on the court. Like, I don't think he could do it. I'd love to see him not have the antics, but I just think that's part of who he is when he steps on the court. Off the court, you've never heard of an issue with him.
But that's the thing is that's the part that makes me feel like I don't think it's like the hardwood that then triggers that thing in him. I think that he has an opportunity to like restrain himself.
Well, here's the deal. When I say there are some guys that are so competitive, and that's what I'm saying. That's what the antics are, because he's so competitive. He can't tune it down a little bit because he's just amped, and I don't think he can play without that because he never has. Think about it. It's not like it's just a thing that has evolved. He's always done this. He's got a mixtape out of it.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying. But the thing that perplexes me is that a lot of these things aren't necessarily like in the run of play.
I know, but he's out there.
Yeah, and he's out there, but it's like this
in
is
other
something
words,
that
in other words, he's not the same. He's not Draymond off the court with his suit and tie on. He's got his uniform on. He's still doing stuff. I mean, I wish it was possible. It's not totally impossible. You can't be definitive, but there's been no situation where he has not. And I've seen guys with that motor. They're so damn competitive, you can't say nothing to them.
Yeah, but at that point, like,
I agree with you, but I'm just saying I've never seen it out of Draymond.
Well, hopefully,
you think there are people who mature over time or whatever, they lower their competitiveness, but there are people actually, some people in their families, they will shoot each other, or they will break a TV because they're so competitive.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's gonna have to try and figure it out though. That Warriors team is in a tough way, and they really need what he brings to them as a kind of a organizing figure when it comes to their defense and as a playmaker offensively. So it'll be interesting to see if he can curtail the antics, as he calls it. That's around the association here on the Get Right on 105.3 The Fan. Coming up next, let's do a little sharing time.
Yeah,
we'll do it next on The Fan.
Ring in the new year with the ultimate timeless gift, a diamond.
So, you got a new gadget over the holidays. Don't forget to listen to your favorite station on Odyssey. Unwrapped a new Amazon Echo or Google Home? Be sure to tell your smart speaker to play your favorite station. Received a new Sonos speaker? Check on Odyssey on the Sonos app for access to hundreds of stations. Got a new phone? Don't forget that the Odyssey app is the only way you can jump to your favorite show with Rewind. No matter what you received this year, listen to your favorites with Odyssey. Download the free Odyssey app today. AUDACY.
Boomer Esiason is on the Fan. Check out Kickoff, getting you ready for every game. Sunday mornings at 7 on the Fan. Presented nationally by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos, brought to you by those who drink it. And Lowe's. Lowe's knows home improvement. It's Boomer on 105.3 The Fan.
And it's back to the Get Right here on 105.3 The Fan. The upcoming segment is brought to you by Classic Chevrolet. Why do so many Texans love Classic Chevrolet and Grapevine? They've got the goods. More new Silverados than anyone with incredible savings. Why go anywhere else? Go see them today or visit ClassicChevrolet.com. This is Texas. This is Classic Chevrolet. Find new roads, relax, and enjoy the difference.
So Get right here on 105.3 The Fan. Reginald Atatula here with you alongside the three-time Hall of Famer Chris Arnold.
Got you down.
Thanks for rocking with us here on this Wednesday evening. Ross Lebinsky's on the ones and twos. Thank you, sir. You can always get involved with the program by texting in to the truckwreck.com text line. That number is 877-881-1053. Again, that number is 877-881-1053. You can also catch us on YouTube by searching 105.3 The Fan on YouTube. You can also see us on twitch.tv/DallasFanCam. I say us. You can see me. Chris is at the Star in Frisco, and I feel like he just, wants you to respect his privacy at this very important time.
No, I just had to do Cowboys crosstalk first, and it's 20 miles away, so you wouldn't have had me in the studio until like close to 9 o'clock.
Yeah. Now, the final Cowboys crosstalk of the season, right?
Yeah, that was it. Nate Newton, me, Greg Ellis, and from the Fan Jam, Will Chambers and his brown liquor.
Yeah, that kept coming up in the conversation, didn't it?
Yeah, he sips. He's from Kentucky, so he's gonna have some bourbon.
He sure will.
And they're up at the Cowboys Club, and Nate was looking at him drink, and was like, "It's for real."
CA,
I thought y'all were joking.
CA, real quick, I was this close. If it wasn't like a legit broadcast for all of the affiliates to listen in, I was. You can't see my hand, but I was this close to pulling up the shots bed.
Shot, everybody.
Well, there you go. That's man, I'm gonna miss Cowboys crosstalk. Not gonna lie, I always enjoy getting to hear from
Nate's great, man.
Obviously, Nate Newton. In fact, I need to hit up Nate, see if we can talk to him on these fine airways. But right now, I guess it's time to do a little sharing time. I should remind you, your Dallas Stars get a win at home versus the visiting Minnesota Wild. Someone reminded me, and I appreciate you reminding me of this fact. The Stars sweep the Wild on the 3-game season series.
Look out.
Winning one with Otter in net.
Take that, Minnesota.
One with Murray in net. And one with Wedgwood in net.
Hey, that'll work.
So there you go. Stars
all of them
getting it done. 2-game win streak. They will take on the Nashville Predators on Friday. But, CA, do you have anything for sharing time here?
I could. You want to go first?
Okay, I'll get you this. I saw this, and I found it interesting. I must have I read this wrong. So I thought I had something, and then I read it again. I was like, actually, I had that wrong. But I do. Can I talk a little bit more about this? The Nick Saban of this all retiring, because one thing I've often said about like Alabama and that program is just like the expectations. What do you think they're gonna do to the next person if they have like 3 wins? Or sorry, 3 losses. 3 wins, of course, we know what they're gonna do. They're tar and feather
fan base. If they're not in the SEC championship game, they lose their damn minds.
Ross,
let alone 3 losses.
Yeah, I was this close to bringing this up about an hour ago when we were first talking about this. I was wondering the exact same thing. What's going to happen when they lose 3 games? What's going to happen when they don't make an SEC championship game? I mean, is Tuscaloosa going to be on fire?
Yes, it will. And so with that being the case, right, CA, you mentioned this, it's like the next person, it's going to be hard to take that job. You really want to be like the coach after the coach, because Nick Saban quite literally solidified himself as one of, if not the absolute best coach in college football history at Alabama. Now, Roy Wood Jr., good comedian, very good comedian, one of my favorites, tweeted something about this, and I found it to be interesting. Alabama's got to do a series of guest coaches like the Daily Show.
Oh, yeah, that would be brilliant, wouldn't it? Like tryouts.
How would you be in on that? Like the idea of like various coaches coming in and coach. Like, obviously, the logistics of this, really tough. But I kind of love the idea of just like, nah, not one guy who probably ends up getting all the smoke. Let's just have a rotation of folks. Like, let's just have some guest coaches throughout the course of a season. And I'm like, who would you put in that circumstance? Like, for various reasons. I feel like we could do serious answers, but I feel like I would love to see someone like the head ball coach, Steve Spurrier, come out of retirement. Just throw one up there. You know what I mean? I just want to see that happen. Throw one up there. Yes, and it would be horrible for recruiting. You're right.
Yeah. How about Harbaugh or Coach Prime? Nobody would expect those two guys, either one of them, to go down there.
Oh, like especially if it's just for a week. Can you imagine the week that is Deion Sanders gets to be the head coach of Alabama? 1 week only. Like, the stadium would have to have overflow seating.
Yeah, and they have Fleck Duck be on the sidelines.
Yeah. Is there anybody like Ross? I could see your mind churning. Is there anybody that you would find fun, hilarious, if they were in this circumstance of 1 week only, you get to coach the Alabama Crimson Tide?
Belichick.
Yeah, I was going to give like a serious answer like Bill O'Brien, give him the helm, see what happens. But Bill Belichick would be really funny. I'll keep thinking on it, though.
Oh, let's give Lane Kiffin a week. I definitely want to give Lane Kiffin a week.
I'll allow it, but only if, because we talked about this earlier, if they like let him know that he won't be getting the job on the tarmac flying home.
I feel like they should let him know that he won't be getting the job up front. I want to see all the shenanigans go straight from there. Urban Meyer, are there protections that we could put in place to make sure that he doesn't do, he was out here kicking grown men, right? Like, I don't know. What are we going to do there?
Since you're talking about chaos and what ifs and, mad theoreticals, how about a player coach? How about the quarterback who also is a naysayer?
Well, I mean, Milroe's coming back. He is the quarterback.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, you just player coach?
Player coach. That's what I said.
I would love to see what that looks like, because this is the thing, right? We think of player coaches. What was the last place that we had player coaches? Probably basketball. When we talk about Bill Russell as one of the ones I think of.
Yeah, that was going to be my guess.
I feel like it's easier to manage a team of 12 to 15
But
players.
here's the deal. A player coach, a quarterback player coach, can call his own plays, which he's been doing, and a lot of quarterbacks call their own plays. And guess what? They're usually the leader of the team anyway, so he's got their attention. The question is, will he get these assistant coaches' attention?
But then also, like, there's so many more people to have to manage on a college football team.
Mm-hmm.
Like they got how many scholarship athletes, then walk-ons, then like you got like every position goes about 5-6 deep on players or rungs. I just can't imagine. And yes, Urban Meyer was good in various places that he coached. There's something about Urban Meyer. And you know what? Maybe that is the way to go for 1 week only, right? Just not enough time for him to mess it up.
He was good in college. His drama was
100%.
in the pros.
Oh, no, he had drama in college, too. But
He got a man in jail. I got you.
Well, I mean,
Hernandez.
the man got to jail by himself. He did that. He did that for himself.
Recruited him, though.
He did have Percy Harvin there. At Florida.
Percy, yeah.
I'm still mad at Netflix for doing that half-assed documentary because I still need the full, real Florida documentary.
I couldn't believe that.
That will never get, never ever. Anyways, I just thought that'd be hilarious. The idea of like the rotating guest coach for Alabama. Please send him in. Send it. Bobby Knight. Yeah. Rest in peace. Correct. Yes.
Rest in peace.
And I don't think that we should put the young man in that circumstance. Right. I know that Nick Saban coaches him hard. I don't think that he'd be out here throwing chairs at him, though. So,
Ooh, another coach that just passed away recently. I would love to see what quotes would come out of Alabama in this scenario. The pirate, Mike Leach. And especially if they like do what we suggest they will and lose like 3 games, just to see what he would say in that scenario.
I feel like he would start talking about animals that he likes. Like that's the thing that people liked about Mike Leach. Mike Leach, if he found something interesting, that's what we're talking about. Does it have to be football? Absolutely not. So yeah, that would be who would be hilarious for the college football media, who obviously they're dealing with a sport that is frequently wildly nonsensical, but also we treat it so very seriously that the dichotomy ends up being fun, and it only gets wider when you have Mike Leach there. Anyways, that's just the thing that caught my attention, thanks to Roy Wood Jr. CA, do you have anything that you would like to share? For sure.
Yeah, I got a quick one. Remember earlier in the evening, you did a segment about the truths about NFL teams. Can you tell me the name of that title of that segment?
Oh yeah, the idea of like the myths, the myths. There's some various myths going into the playoffs for all the 14 teams participating.
What?
Yeah,
I found out some myths about bananas. You like bananas? Do you eat bananas?
I am fond of bananas. Yes.
What about you, Ross?
Big potassium guy.
877-881-1053. Tolos, do you like bananas? I love bananas too, and you said potassium. If you're a runner, which I'm retired now, my back won't let me run, that helps your muscles overcome soreness. That's what the potassium is. But these are some of the myths about bananas that people didn't understand or didn't know. Did you know bananas didn't hit America till the late 1800s? Because they're not from America.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, 1876. The Centennial Exhibit, the Centennial Exhibition, which is like a fair, the first World's Fair held in America, they brought the bananas. First time they came to America, people started taste testing them, and now people eat 132 pounds of bananas a year. And guess what? Did you know bananas are not grown on trees?
Huh.
You thought, okay, they're on the trees and they're hanging up there. Guess what? Technically, those are not trees. Those lumbering plants are considered herbs. Botanists said trees have to have woody stems. Those trees aren't woody. They're herbs. Herbs, depending on how you smoke them. The stalks, that's another way to put it.
You smoking bananas? Wait, I'm confused. You lost me over the course of it. We smoking bananas? Is that what happened here?
Another name.
Okay.
Wacky banacky. All right. And then finally, did you know this? You know how they said they found out that a tomato is a fruit?
That is correct.
It's not a vegetable?
Yep.
Did you know that bananas are actually berries?
Yes, I did know that. The seeds, right?
Yep, it's the seeds.
Uh-huh.
And not every brand of banana or every kind of banana have seeds, but most of them do, and they qualify as a berry. And last but not least, you're talking about how you can be creative with a banana. Banana peels can purify water. If you're trying to purify some water because you think this water is kind of toxic or whatever, you need to clear it up, drop a banana peel off in there. It's not as good as coconut fibers or peanut shells, but guess what? Banana peels do the same job. And there you go.
Also, throwing a banana peel out your car is not going to stop nobody. I've learned that.
And putting a banana in the pipe.
Yeah.
Wait, real life isn't Mario Kart?
Yeah, Mario Kart has been leading us astray. Astray, I say. That's some sharing time on the Get Right here on 105 through the Fan. 214, you're right. The Jungle Book did lie to us.
Wow.
We gotta break down Jungle Book is Disney, right? Yes, Disney. We gotta go to Disney and trying to get them right. It's Get Right here on 105 through the Fan. Coming up next, we'll discuss some of your headlines on this Wednesday. We'll do it next.
Sports with lots of laughs mixed in. Sean and RJ, the KNC Masterpiece, G-Bag Nation, and by DFWsecurity.com. It's time for the Get Right on 105.3 The Fan.
Yes, indeed. It is the Get Right here on 105.3 The Fan. Whee! My name's Reginald Atatula. That is the three-time Hall of Famer Chris Arnold.
Got you down.
Appreciate Ross Lubinsky on the ones and twos for us this evening. And you for rocking with us. Final hour of the program for this evening as we got you till 11. And, yeah, thanks for doing that. Thanks for hanging out with us. You can always get involved with the program by texting into the truckwreck.com text line. The number is 877-881-1053. 877-881-1053. I don't know where or why or how I messed that up, but I did.
It happens.
So sue me.
To the best
okay. Some of this is
you must have ate a banana.
I did not. I actually ate an apple. Funny enough, so different.
Should have had a V8.
Different fruit. Oh, okay. That's a little throwback.
That's a fruit too.
There you go.
Tomato juice.
Some vegetables, and some fruits and vegetables in the drink. I just really want to say vegetables like that. It's funny to me. But no, the reason why I've been thrown off, at least I'm going to blame it on this, from the 469 on the truckwreck.com text line, they say bananas are radioactive.
Yes, they are. That's one of the things I had on my little list here.
Yeah, apparently it's the potassium. There's an unstable isotope, potassium-40, that naturally occurs within those bananas. And so apparently there's something called the BED, which is the banana equivalency dose. Mm-hmm. And that tells you how many bananas you'd have to eat for it to be lethal. And so just so you know, every time you eat a banana, eating some radioactivity in there.
Glow in the dark.
Very small amount of radioactivity. So yeah, don't get no thoughts that you're gonna eat a whole bunch of bananas.
Just enough.
I know you had me here thinking I was gonna eat a whole bunch of bananas and somehow become one of the X-Men.
By the way, they're not the only one. They're not the only food that has some radioactivity. Did you know spinach, potatoes, and oranges do too?
I did not.
You know.
Okay. I imagine that you'd have to eat like a battleship's worth of those in order for it to be like really radioactive, like noticeably.
Exactly. You have to wave a Geiger counter over you to make sure you're not.
That's a good throw. That's a good throw. Geiger counter. That's just fun. A lot of fun words being used on today's show. Let's see if we use some more of those as we get you your headlines on this Wednesday evening. We begin, of course, by talking about the game that was happening in DFW. We always try and keep you abreast of what's happening with your DFW sports when they're live. And your Stars get a big 7-2 win over the Minnesota Wild. Allows them to sweep the Wild on the season. 3 wins for your Stars in those 3 matchups, and 2 wins in the last couple to get you a 2-game win streak.
Got a winning streak over. That's right.
There you go. That's ultimately what I wanted to get to. Mm-hmm. So good job by the Stars. Seems like everybody got involved. I don't believe, if I remember correctly, that anybody scored twice. It was 7 different goal scorers, if I remember correctly.
Look out, that is a puck party.
No, 6 different goal scorers.
Still.
Because, 7. Pavelski, Duchesne, Rope Hintz, Robertson, Lundqvist, Sagan, and Steele. 7 different goal scorers. There you go. I had it right the first time. I don't know why I second-guessed myself. Your Dallas Stars, big-time win. They'll welcome in the Nashville Predators on Friday. And so, yeah, keep it going.
Sounds like a balanced attack.
There you go. Let's make it 3. Just like a balanced diet when you add a little bit of banana in there. Obviously, we've been talking about this evening some other big-time headlines. Nick Saban, 72 years old, 51 years in coaching, the last 17 spent with the University of Alabama. Tons of, I believe, 7 national championships, which is the most of any head coach in college football history.
6 with Alabama, 1 with LSU.
Just an incredible run. Today, he announced that he is retiring from coaching in general, I'm guessing, but in college football at Alabama. And so, salute to a incredible football coach. And also now the eyes have turned towards who takes over the mantle at probably the biggest job in college football, and maybe the most demanding job in college football.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who if you had to put your money on one name, who are you leaning on here, CA?
It's hard to say, but I mean, you figure it's probably whoever has a better chance of swaying that fandom or giving a little elbow room, be Kirby Smart. Because he was there with Saban for a while.
Yeah.
And then he's at Georgia. He's proven he can win at Georgia. I mean, back-to-back national championships 2 years ago. All I got to say is he would be the one that the fans would kind of bear with. Anybody else, they immediately want results.
Well, I feel like the immediate results is necessary regardless, but I think you're right. I get what you're saying. Like he would get a little bit more leeway than I think anybody else. I just don't know that he'd be willing to say yes, but I think you're right. If they could get a single person, Kirby Smart would be the first. And
the craziest thing is, he's got it made at Georgia, but how people are competitive. I bet he, in his mind, I could probably out-coach Saban and do it over here too.
I mean, you can make the argument that he has.
Yeah, lately.
Yeah, you can definitely make that argument.
By the way, speaking of Georgia, did you know that Nick Saban doesn't even live in Alabama? He and his wife live in Georgia. Did you know that?
Is that so?
Just down the highway.
Did not realize that.
Big property in Georgia on the border. Not even in Alabama proper.
There you go. Well, it's another interesting portion of this that we have yet to talk about is whoever takes the job next is going to have some work to do because this is probably a sign of other things. Just generally, whenever a coach leaves a position, the recruiting class becomes a little bit in question, and that started up just hours after it was known that Nick Saban was retiring. 5-star wide receiver Ryan Williams said that he's decommitted from the Crimson Tide's 2024 recruiting class. So that's a 5-star wide receiver that is now back up for grabs, and I imagine Ross sheds a single tear for the Alabama Crimson Tide. I imagine it's a sarcastic one. But yes, the Alabama Crimson Tide, whoever ultimately takes that job, they're going to have to move quickly in trying to fill that position because typically you try and fill these positions before signing day and you're after signing day. So now you're going to have to do a level of recruiting on speed run, and then also try and recruit the recruiting class that's already there. So it's going to be an interesting next few, weeks to a month for the University of Alabama to see how they can manage through this situation.
Yeah, I can give you a Cowboy spin on this. How about this?
Okay, please do.
Give you a Cowboy angle on this Nick Saban retiring.
Is that where Dan Quinn's going? Is that you're sending him to Alabama?
No, not that good.
Okay, all right.
What Dallas Cowboy player currently on this roster got a locker in the locker room is probably crushed right now?
Who's my Alabama player on this locker room? Oh, my goodness.
I can give you a hint.
I'm going to be so mad.
He just signed a new contract this summer.
What am I doing?
How about I give you another
one? Trayvon.
There you go.
Yeah, I was
Trayvon Diggs went to Alabama as a wide receiver, and Nick Saban said, son, you're going to be a cornerback.
I knew I was going to be mad when you started saying because I was like, I definitely know who's the Alabama player, but it's not coming to mind. Trayvon Diggs, absolutely. Recruited as a wide receiver, ends up being a cornerback, and has gotten paid.
Yes, he did.
As an incredible wide receiver, cornerback in this league. So,
exactly.
A lot of news happening around Alabama. Obviously, some news in the NFL that impacts your Cowboys, re-racking that. Pete Carroll will no longer be the head coach in Seattle. Jody Allen, the acting owner, along with Pete Carroll, supposedly came to agreement that this was the best for the organization. And I see one of the reasons why I think that this makes sense, and I think I talked about this earlier, is you look around and you go, this might be the most fruitful time if you're looking to hire a head coach in the NFL than any time recently.
That's right. In other words, you kind of look, you got to have a plan B. Pete Carroll's 72. It's not like he's young and maybe he has a bad season or two and then we got to make a move and it's a surprise move. No, they've been, quote unquote, probably been preparing for him to step aside for a couple of years. And as you just said, there's some talent out there that they could slide in, and the name that Vegas and everybody else talking about is Dan Quinn.
Quinn?
Because he was their defensive coordinator when they went to back-to-back Super Bowls. He created the Legion of Boom. He's family, and he might be available. Go ahead the rest of that list. There's a lot of talent out there.
Yeah, Dan Quinn, obviously, a lot of people think Bill Belichick might be out there. Obviously, you'd be going from a relatively old quarterback to a head coach to another relatively old head coach. But then also there's a lot of young, talented coaches that should be out there, or potentially first-time head coaches. But obviously, you talk about Mike Vrabel, who is out there, who is a proven head coach. Then you also have a lot of talented young coaches like Ben Johnson, who is the offensive coordinator in Detroit. You've got Bobby Slowick, offensive coordinator in Houston. Mike McDonald, who is the defensive coordinator in Baltimore. And, I mean, I feel like there's others that we're not even giving a lot of consideration to. Eric Bieniemy is still out there. I know that there's a lot of people that have not considered him in that head coaching rank still, but I imagine that he probably still has plays in that situation. There's a lot of coaches that are potentially out there, and it feels like if this is the right time to maybe get in there and make sure you can get one of the talented people that could possibly be the helm of your team for the next so long. I mean, Pete Carroll was there 14 years.
You know what's so wild? There's a coach right now that came back last year at this time, and there's great opportunities available, not just other coaches out there, but there's great opportunities in different teams. Sean Payton just jumped back in too soon. He'd have probably been a better fit at other locations like the Chargers. I mean, I can go in a place where he could be total autonomy.
Yeah.
I mean, I can go down the list where he could probably better than Denver. Denver was like, okay, I got new ownership there. The Walton family there might leave me alone. But, you know, he could have gone a number of places had he waited one more year.
Yeah, possibly. And you never know. That thing could circle back around. You never know how that goes. Also, I didn't mention, the whole Jim Harbaugh thing. That could also.
He's going to leverage it if he don't do anything. He'll get some money out of it some kind of way.
I would. I mean,
that's how you do it.
I absolutely would. And he's been playing footsies with the NFL almost seemingly as soon as he got to Michigan.
Mm-hmm. The only problem with him is he's an acquired taste, because in San Francisco, when he left, they wrote the articles about this guy. You just stay away from him.
Yeah.
He didn't get along with nobody. We're talking about players, his other coaches, assistant coaches, the general manager, the front office.
Right.
He was a terror.
Yeah, he grates on his bosses. But the thing that makes it work for him is he's really good at coaching football. Yeah. And so it's like, how much can you tolerate that? And sometimes it gets to a point where it's like no more. But also you'll end up in, Super Bowls like San Francisco, or you'll end up winning a national championship like Michigan, right? Like, there's bona fides in this that make it worthwhile. And hey, if you're trying to hire him, it's usually good in the honeymoon stage. So try and get it in while you can, right? As we talk about head coaches around the NFL, there is one head coach that will remain with his team. Well, there's a lot more than one, but there's one notable here. The Chicago Bears, Matt Eberflus, formerly linebackers coach for your Dallas Cowboys. Eberflus, it looked like there's been a lot of talk around the Chicago Bears. It has not been a good team over his tenure. They ultimately part ways with offensive coordinator Luke Getsy. And I mean, I think rightfully so, in the ways in which you've not been able to utilize.
Lamb, they just had him walk the plank.
Yeah, well, but also they have not been able to utilize Justin Fields, who is a pretty solid talent, and that's what you need offensively.
But
he might be safe.
Hadn't they turned it around the last few games? You say too much too late?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's been very evident that you have not gotten the most out of that quarterback, and maybe Eberflus is saved in that regard because he's a defensive guy, and but they're going to need to figure this out. It does. I think it's leaning towards them as an organization, as a unit, staying with Eberflus and maybe even staying with Justin Fields this next season, trying to draft around him. But then Eberflus, if it goes bad again, I think he could be kind of a lame duck kind of head coach. So
I think he is a lame duck in this season. I'm gonna go ahead and say that he's going to be the first name on the hot seat. When they always say a coach is on the hot seat in August.
That feels like a tough situation to be in, and one that
they got to hit the ground running. You know what I mean? Yeah. They got to start the season probably 3-0.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's exactly 3-0, but I do think that they've got to show some proof of concept very early on in the season. Yep. And I feel like wouldn't you want to have a little bit cleaner of a slate? I don't know. I guess, but we'll see how it works out for the Chicago Bears. I'm sure that the recent history has gone so well that this will continue going well, right?
They can't have Ditka.
No, they can't.
That's the only coach they like.
Yeah, it does feel like that, doesn't it?
The only one.
Real quick on your headlines, I do want to make note of this just because he was the fascination coming into the league. The human stat sheet stuffer, as he's referred to on The Athletic, Victor Wembanyama notches his first triple-double tonight, 7-footer, gets the milestone against the Detroit Pistons, no less.
Oh, they beat the Pistons.
Yes, they did. 16 points, 12 rebounds, 10 assists, no turnovers. In only 21 minutes of play, CA.
See, the only person holding him back is Pop. Just like when Michael Jordan was at North Carolina, Dean Smith was the only one to hold him under 20 points a game.
Yeah, but he was a freshman. That's why
exactly.
You can't let freshmen run stuff.
Wemby's a rookie.
There you go. But look, I think that this was something I was interested with Victor Wembanyama. There's a lot of hype around him, and I was interested to see how long people would stick with it because this is not a good basketball team. And it seems like this is kind of quieted, but he's still really good at basketball.
Yes, he is.
And so I'm interested when's going to be the inflection point where we flip this back around. You know what I mean? Where as a league and as a viewing public, we go, hey, man, we're actually tuning in just because he's that good. Because they tried to, you see the way that this thing is scheduled out, CA, in the national landscape. Mm-hmm. There's some Spurs games because, I imagine they thought people will tune in just for Wemby, and that team just has not been good enough to draw that kind of attention.
Doesn't even start him half the time.
Yeah, and so I'm interested in seeing when do we get to that point where we're like, yeah, the rest of the team be damned, he's that good, and how quickly he can escalate.
Here's what's so crazy. The Spurs aren't known for making big trades all the time, so it's going to be through the draft again. And so it's like Pop's going to be 90 years old out there, and they'll finally start, and the Spurs will be competing again because they like to build.
There you go. I guess I'll mention again, Kawhi Leonard signs a 3-year, $153 million extension.
Can you let me give a quick look since we coming off that raggedy Mavericks game yesterday. They're going to take on JB and the Knicks tomorrow. But in the meantime, Las Vegas has the Mavericks as the #1 destination in the Pascal Siakam sweepstakes.
Should he leave the Raptors? Yes, your Mavericks lead in the betting odds.
Yeah.
So look, we're going to be watching with bated breath the trade market, particularly for the Mavericks. As all right, CA, I understand you work over there, but I think we can do this in a very general way, right? If you had to put odds on it that the Mavs make a trade, what would you put as like the percentage chance that the odds that the Mavs definitely make a trade before the trade deadline?
I'd say it's better than 50-50 because they've done so every year Nico has been here, which has only been the last couple of years. But they've done it, and it's always been a big trade. They traded Porzingis away, and they traded Kyrie Irving here. I'm talking about in 2 different years. So, and they know, in other words, they're doing. This is what I love about what they're doing, and I wish the Cowboys had done it all along. They only did it this offseason, and the Rangers continue to do it. If you're going to build a team, use every weapon in your arsenal. Don't just say, well, we're going to use it. We're just going to go through the draft. Use trades, use free agency, use the draft. Use them all. And again, the Mavericks are doing that. And so you got to like it because guess what? All aspects of it are working. When Donnie Nelson was running it, they never used the draft. You follow what I'm saying? They're like, why don't you use the draft? They're using everything. People thought Nico couldn't draft. Guess what? You got Lively and Omax. So he knows what he's doing, and I think he might do it again.
There you go. Those are some of your headlines on this Wednesday evening on the Get Right here on 105.3 The Fan. Coming up next, CA. Let's get some CA stories.
You know, there have been several Cowboys getting the flu, but it wasn't affluenza. Even though I'm up here at the Star, we're going to talk about the Star and the locker room at Valley Ranch and the locker room on Forest Lane. I'm going to talk some locker room stuff, secrets, next on Fan.
Blasting out 100,000 watts of FM sports talk.
those who qualify, including the GI Bill.
So get right here on 105.3 The Fan. Reginald Atatula here with you alongside the three-time Hall of Famer Chris Arnold.
Got you down.
Who's broadcasting live from the Star in Frisco after the last edition for this football season of Cowboys Crosstalk. So we bid farewell to that particular program, but hope that the Cowboys will continue playing well after it's done, as, of course, they've got the wild card game against the Green Bay Packers this Sunday, 3:30. You can hear that right here on your home of the Cowboys, 105.3 The Fan. Also your home of the Texas Rangers, who won the World Series. Always fun to remember that. Always fun to remind you, and I love doing it. You can always get involved with the program by texting it to the truckwreck.com. Text line 877-881-1053. And you want to do that because it's time to hear about some more of CA's, comings and goings, a fantastic life lived and continuing to be lived by our Chris Arnold. CA stories. What you got for me, CA?
Appreciate you, Reg. Appreciate you, Ross. And more importantly, appreciate all the Tolos. See, since I'm up here at the start, and I told him this tease, I said, some of the Cowboy players over the season, they got the flu. Non-COVID illness, right? The flu. Zach Martin had some kind of flu. They got him in Washington. And I said, it's the flu, but not affluenza.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is this team is different. This team is not like these other teams that have been playing out here, practicing at the Star. I was saying over the years, since they moved out here, man, I don't know. This team, it's like Frisco's just not the real world. It's just not. And, that song, they want to be royal, royal. I was like, seems like that's the way everybody rolls around here. The whole thing up here is just not the real world. For example, up here, the Star is located, the whole complex is located right off the tollway. They call this part of the tollway the $1 Billion Mile. And you can see it all over Frisco. I don't think they have a building that's over 5 years old. Buddy, seriously.
I feel so broke when I drive through there.
Man.
I was trying to find a nicer way of saying it, but nope, that's the one. I be feeling broke.
I'm just saying they got the major corporations down here. They got several high schools. They got people from all over the country that moved into Frisco. And like you go to the gas station. Any gas station around Dallas-Fort Worth, you got trash cans overflowing or, trash on the ground sometimes. Not in Frisco, they're spotless. You can eat off the ground. There's no homeless people at the signal lights begging for. This is Frisco. It's just not real up here. And I would say Cowboy players, they lose 2 or 3 games, and their friends and family from different parts call it, hey, dog, y'all all right, man? Y'all done lost 3 in a row. No, we good. We good. That's because everybody in Frisco is saying, oh, you play for the Cowboys. Can I have your autograph? Because they're at the grocery store. You're at, all the players, they live here. So they're never, I was calling it affluenza. And that doesn't happen to this year's team. This year's team, they're really, really focused. I've been getting smacked in the mouth 2 years in a row in the playoffs by San Francisco. Physical football.
Yeah.
Done knocked the affluenza out of them. There were also people who used to say, man, if Jimmy was coaching this team, they wouldn't have any kind of affluenza at Frisco. And I'm like, you're right. Jimmy went to the Ring of Honor, and Jimmy actually said this years ago. Jimmy was almost like, we were talking about Harbaugh last segment.
Yeah.
That he's difficult to be around. Jimmy was kind of like that. And he used to say years and years ago, no, I can't coach him. I'm not that same guy anymore. And Jimmy's like 80 now, so that wasn't going to happen. But let me give you some Jimmy stuff, Cowboys locker room stuff, Tom Landry stuff, just to give you an idea of how this is the most valuable franchise in the world, and you can just see it. Remember a couple of years ago when the Cowboys were on Hard Knocks?
Yes.
And they had this drone that flew all over the Star headquarters.
Yeah, that was an incredible shot.
Incredible. Just go to YouTube if you haven't seen it yet. Just drone Cowboys Star. You will see it. It's breathtaking, and it's showing you that this facility, this complex where I'm sitting right now broadcasting to you in a nice, comfy, cozy studio office, right overlooking the practice field, walking outside this door, I can look out on the practice field. This facility costs more than AT&T Stadium. And AT&T Stadium costs $1.2 billion.
Mm-hmm.
This Star complex costs $1.5 billion. And you can see it, you can smell it, you can taste it if you ate a piece of food off the ground. It is pimped out. I don't see how a free agent could walk out of this building and not sign on the dotted line. It's just that amazing. And it's, again, the most valuable franchise in all the world. It's worth over, I think, now $8 billion. And you can just see it. Jerry said it. Tex Schramm told him years ago, it's not that the Cowboys are like the Cowboys on TV. It's you got to make it bigger than life. It can't be, he was just giving the example that Texas, like, it's got to be dreams come true. It's not about, cowboys and riding horses and roping cattle. That's not what these Dallas Cowboys, I got a star on a helmet, not a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
So with that being said, let me tell you about the differences.
Okay.
Up here in the Star, back at Valley Ranch, and where it first started back when I started covering the Cowboys in 1980, they were on Forest Lane. Here at the Star, the Cowboys locker room, of course, is state-of-the-art, pimped out, everything you can imagine, and it's shaped like a football. Did you know that?
I don't think I realized that.
It's wide in the middle. It's shaped like a football, but it's so big. Unless you were standing at one end of it, you wouldn't probably even pay attention to it or notice it.
Right.
But they're proud of that. And of course, I mean, everything you could. If you ever took a tour of the Star, your jaws would just drop. But at the same time, that locker room itself is greater than any kind of lifestyle, fitness, health club.
Right. I would hope so.
Oh yeah. Again. But the shape of the locker room, I'm bringing this up for a reason. It's shaped like a football, but all the lockers face each other. And
sure, and I think that happens a lot in locker rooms.
Well, let me tell you something. I'm gonna tell you a little story here about Jimmy Johnson.
Yep.
Who has a degree in psychology. When the Cowboys first started, when they were on Forest Lane, and Tom Landry was the coach, that was an old-fashioned practice field and locker room. The business side of it wasn't even over there on Forest Lane. It was on Central and Mockingbird in a high-rise that also housed the Playboy Club. But the field and the locker room, it was on Forest Lane, and it was like a high school. These are teams that went to the Super Bowl in the 70s.
Right.
It was, I'm covering in the 19 days, like, this is the Cowboys. And, of course, everybody was happy and down to earth. But, like, it was so funny because the black players were all in one row, and they called it Ghetto Row. Ron Springs said, this is our house, Ghetto Row.
Wow.
You got to be cool to be on this row.
Right.
And so you had rows of lockers, and you had long benches, just like, think about old school. Think about some high schools that still have that kind of thing. Then they move out to Valley Ranch.
And that has to make sense, like when it comes to just like efficiency. If you're building a locker room just trying to make use of the space.
And nobody was thinking like NFL and millions of dollars. You know what I mean? It's like Cowboys are playing pro football, and back then, college football was probably just as big, but still.
Likely bigger, honestly.
Yeah, but this is the 1970s, and they were out there on Forest Lane, and they were like, the grocery store was like the parking lot right next to it, and they go over there to the grocery store and bring back food and stuff. And by the way, it was right behind a motel off of 635, and scouts from other teams would rent would book rooms and just videotape and watch practice. I kid you not. Google it up. So let's move forward to Valley Ranch. Jerry hadn't even bought the team yet. They're at Valley Ranch. They move in, and like I said, I was watching the whole thing. Man, when they first were going out there, I went out there. They had this big tent out there to show that they're going to have a groundbreaking ceremony. They're off of LBJ and MacArthur, north of LBJ. It was fields. They didn't even have neighborhoods. It was nothing. What they say, if you build it, they will come.
I've heard that from time to time.
That's what happened with the Cowboys at Valley Ranch. This whole community showed up out of nowhere in Irving, and they called it Valley Ranch. And the Cowboys had these streets named after stuff, and it was all football related streets. But in that locker room, this is where it was didn't make any sense, but that's what they had, because they were trying to be all cool and not state of the art, but up to date or whatever. We got the best of the best because we're the Cowboys. And like I said, Jerry hadn't even bought the team. This wasn't a Jerry thing. Every locker was like in a cubicle at an office. An open air office. They had cubicles. They have the locker. They'd have a desk. They'd have a swivel chair.
Okay, so yeah, you could get to work, sit down, getting your
And it was
playbook.
like in fours. But it was like, okay, if you're like a reporter, you just had to know where you're going, because imagine trying to find so-and-so's cubicle.
That's
if
right.
you're not tall, you can't tell where they are.
Well, clearly you just read the nameplate, CA. I don't know what
But
you
you'd
mean.
have to walk around. Imagine, it's not even about me, but let me tell you about the brilliance of Jimmy Johnson, because that's where I'm going with this. Cubicles don't work in sports. It just don't. And so Landry, he didn't care about that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Johnson, first thing he said, oh, hell no. No, mind you, he's got a degree in psychology. He said, take these damn cubicles out. These players don't even know each other. And they didn't. The defensive guys would have some cubicles on that end of the room. Offensive guys over here, they only saw the people in that four-part area. They could hide.
Right.
They could sleep. They could sleep in their cubicle, head on the desk. Jimmy said, oh, hell no. He made it one big room, and then he was in charge of whose locker was next to whom, and he did it on purpose. He wanted veterans next to rookies that could influence them and lift them up, so to speak, or whatever. He pulled it off. That was part of, low-key, how he got that team to win a Super Bowl so quick, because he was in charge of putting the lockers right next to each other and that kind of a thing. So I bring that up to show you that Jimmy Johnson and certain coaches, they're over the top in a good way. They know what it takes to win.
Sure.
So with this football-shaped locker room up here, yeah, it's the same concept. They all face each other. They can talk. They can share stuff. Somebody can be in the middle of the room, get everybody's attention. It's not like in cubicles and somebody's hiding. You have to. How can you talk to the whole room?
Right.
So I give him credit for that, and that's the Jimmy Johnson thing. Like I said, Tom Landry, he was more into the X's and O's. He didn't really care, and unfortunately for him, they didn't have a lot of good winning records, the last 3 years on his reign. And Jimmy Johnson came in, and the first thing he did said, I'm going to change this culture right now and get rid of these damn cubicles. And up here, I think, I'm not saying this is Mike McCarthy, I just think because of the way they've lost in the playoffs the last few years, and Dak Prescott, who also has a degree in workplace psychology, I'm not saying he's set the room up, right? But dude, they got a really good culture. And there are guys in that locker room, in that football-shaped locker room, like Jaron Kearse, where they can talk some trash and the whole room gathers around. You follow where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
And you've probably seen some videos like after the games in AT&T Stadium, where, or you even see it around the league. They show them different, where the coach is in the middle and everybody's all around and they're going crazy and nuts. Well, guess what? The Cowboys locker room up here at the Star is shaped in a way where you can command the whole damn room. And I think that's important. And there's just some CA Stories Confidential.
There you go. Another look inside, not just the glamorous life of Chris Arnold, but in this way, the psychology and the design, the intricate design of your Dallas Cowboys.
Do I have time for like a little after part two real quick?
Why not? Go for it.
Okay, so here's another thing that used to happen back in the day.
Yeah.
Tom Landry used to have a luncheon every Tuesday. That was the players' day off, and Tom Landry would have a luncheon with the media, and they would have it at the Cowboys headquarters on Mockingbird, where the Playboy headquarters was. And he had this luncheon, and you could, after lunch, you're sitting there having lunch with Landry and small talk, get to know him a little bit. And then afterwards, he'd have like a little press conference where you could have it set up, in this little side room.
That sounds nice.
And then when they moved it to Valley Ranch, he's still doing the same thing, and he'd have the luncheon. And, you just get to know Landry a little bit more, and he'd have lunch with you, and they'd have whatever the food it was. At the hotel or at the building, it was probably bunny food, but that's a joke.
All right. Okay.
And then, but back to Valley Ranch, they'd have whatever the food was. Well, when Jerry bought the team, Jimmy didn't want to have lunch with nobody. Jimmy's trying to turn the damn thing around.
Trying to coach football here.
Trying to coach some football. Get this culture changed. Well, Jerry said, okay, I'll continue the tradition, because everybody's used to having lunch on a Tuesday up there and finding out stuff. So Jerry was having answers and questions and stuff at the luncheon. And then Jerry would have like all kinds of food. He said, I'm going to really get these media guys on our side, because this terrible team was starting off slow. So let me feed them good. Let me give them some food they never had before. And then one day he played the trick on the media. One day he served up something exotic for lunch on a Tuesday. Guess what he had?
Huh. Exotic.
Everybody said, wow, these meatballs are kind of greasy, but they're good. They're kind of gamey.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Yes, he did. He said, fellas, in
those-
Arkansas, we call them cat fries.
I was about to say, are these Rocky Mountain oysters?
And they're called Rocky Mountain oysters
Okay.
everywhere else.
All right.
These guys start, they want to, and there's another CA Stores competition.
There you go. I don't even know how to summarize that one, but I hope you enjoyed getting some back in the day.
I think that was the last time he did the Tuesday lunch, and they don't do that no more.
I bet you he'd do it again. People still come up there. Because look, if there's one thing that Jerry knows how to do, throw a party.
He sure does.
And he feeds the folks well.
He does it at AT&T Stadium at the games. I'm telling you that press box, it's legendary food up there.
That's right. Look, enough fooling around though. We appreciate your CA stories, but we got to get to the final call. We'll do it next on The Fan.
Coming up Thursday morning on Sean and RJ, we have a Packers version of High Low during the Expressway, and Babe Laufenberg previews the playoff game at 8:40. It's a Thursday morning on The Fan.
Ring in the new year with the ultimate timeless gift, a diamond from Diamonds Direct. Whether you're ready to pop the question or celebrating a lifetime of love in 2024, Diamonds Direct can make this New Year's one to
will be live at Buffalo Wild Wings in Frisco, 3211 Preston Road.
And we have tickets courtesy of Miller Lite for Cowboys-Packers in the playoffs. The fun starts at 10, goes all the way to 2 on the KNC Masterpiece on 105.3 The Fan.
And it's back to the Get Right here on 105.3 The Fan. The upcoming segment is brought to you by Classic Chevrolet. Why do so many Texans love Classic Chevrolet and Grapevine? They've got the goods. More new Silverados than anyone with incredible savings. Why go anywhere else? This is Texas. This is Classic Chevrolet. Find new roads, relax, and enjoy the difference.
So Get Right here on 105.3 The Fan. Reginald Atatula here with you alongside the three-time Hall of Famer Chris Arnold.
Got you down.
Thanks for rocking with us on this Wednesday evening. Ross Lebinsky on the ones and twos. Thank you, sir. You can always get involved with the program by texting into the truckwreck.com text line 877-881-1053, and we appreciate y'all doing that all evening. It is the final call here on the Get Right. CA broadcasting from the Star in Frisco and giving us an update, or maybe not an update, but telling us some stories and giving us some insight into how Valley Ranch came to be, some of the things around that, and oddly enough, Rocky Mountain oysters. And so if you didn't hear that, you can listen to that or anything that we talked about on this broadcast, going to the Odyssey app using the rewind function. Also, check us out on YouTube, 105throughthefan.com/YouTube. A lot of, you search 105 Through the Fan on YouTube. There we go. But you should also check out 105throughthefan.com. A lot of insightful things on your Dallas sports teams. I don't know how I got there. My brain seems to be slipping today. I don't know what it is, CA, but
you got a lot of information up there, and you've got an overload.
I guess so. But yes, it's the final call here. We should let you know or remind you that your Dallas Stars get a win at the AAC tonight, 7-2.
Nice.
Over the visiting Minnesota Wild. That is a season sweep of the Wild, and a nice win in the back-to-back games versus the Wild. You had Scott Wedgwood between the pipes in this one, so you get a win with each of your goalies in 3 games versus the Wild. Ottinger first, then 2 days ago with Matt Murray, and now with Scott Wedgwood. And so your Stars will be back on the ice at the AAC against the Nashville Predators on Friday.
Nice depth.
CA, the Mavs will have an opportunity to get back into winning ways tomorrow, correct? But let's take a quick second to, if you could allow me to ask you, what the hell happened last night against the Minnesota Grizzlies, who did not have John Morant?
Everybody's trying to wonder what happened. All I can tell you is they didn't show up. They were there. Maybe they felt like that signature win over the Minnesota Timberwolves. I'm talking about not like Luka and Kyrie, but the rest of the guys, they're like, man, that was great. There's no logical reason that they should have lost the game, let alone damn near get blown out by the Memphis Grizzlies, when the Grizzlies had lots of their players injured and hurt, and they have the number 30 offense in the NBA, and there's 30 teams.
Yeah, and so
but you know what? Again, you can all you can do is shake it off and start something new, because there's 82 games as opposed to 16 or 17.
Yeah, you have to, right? You can't let one game affect the next one, and they're going to have an opportunity to determine, or at least prove, how good they are at turning the page and how good they are at showing up and being energetic for the game.
There's lessons to be learned.
100%. One of those being, hey, effort and energy, you don't get to just do that once and turn it off. It needs to show up. And they will have a quick challenge of that as they will face off against the New York Knicks tomorrow evening at the AAC.
Do you remember
Brunson.
the last time that Knicks came to the AAC, what happened in that game?
I actually don't. Please remind me.
Luka had the first ever 60-point triple-double in NBA history.
Yeah, sounds nice. It'd be
In
nice
other
if
words,
you could repeat something like
you
that.
just never know when Luka might do something just absolutely amazing, because he does it on the regular. But against the Knicks, that was the amazing come from behind, and they needed all 60 of those points of Luka, but it was amazing.
They sure did. The Knicks have been playing well of late. Got a win, I believe, or is that today? They played the Trailblazers? I'm trying to recall when they played.
Yesterday.
Yeah, I believe it was yesterday as well. They got a win over the Trailblazers, but the Knicks on a 5-game win streak, been playing really well with OG Anunoby. They're putting Mitchell Robinson, who might be able to return late in the season. I believe that they're trying to get some cap relief with his injury and missing a whole bunch of time. So that's going on there. But yeah, you'll see the New York Knicks. You'll see Jalen Brunson return.
In fact, this is going to be the first time he's got to play in a Knicks uniform against the Mavericks, because that last game a year ago, he was hurt. He was there, but he didn't play.
There you go. CA, we had one Tolo. I don't know how many other Tolos out there, but one Tolo asked for an update on what's happening with me and the bed bugs.
Yeah, what's the latest?
So
Did they handle up on that?
Well, yesterday, before I came to work, or when I was coming to work, the pest control man came through to the apartment and, went through a treatment. And I didn't find out any information about that until today, but the information I did find out is we have confirmed it is bed bugs. There aren't a ton of them, but there aren't none of them. You know what I mean? Like it's a
just enough. One is one too many.
Yeah, that's right. Definitely one too many. I don't remember exactly the number that we were given, but it's a few of them, right? And so it is isolated to one area of the house or the apartment that is not my bedroom, right? So that is nice.
Good.
But likelihood is going to need a few treatments. But it looks like we have an opportunity to get this under control, ladies and gentlemen. So
are they gonna put you up somewhere else, or you got to stay there?
I look, man. I ain't made out of money, my man. So
when I said they, not you, were they the apartment complex?
Not as of right now. We'll see if we might need to push the issue here soon, though. But I think I'm good in that regard, thankfully. But yeah, it looks like we're gonna be able to make it through. It's gonna take a little time, I imagine, because bed bugs. The treatment process takes multiple days because apparently you can kill the ones that are alive, but if there are eggs, the gestation period is like 8 to 10 days. So if you're like, hey, we killed these ones, all right, cool. In 8 to 10 days, you can have a whole crop of newly formed bed bugs back at you. But the thing that's nice about it is you come back around, you treat those ones, and because bed bugs can't lay eggs for like 30 days, if you're able to get them, you should be cool. Now, this isn't like a high-level infestation. We have.
Are they gonna fumigate it or?
Oh yeah.
Oh boy.
Oh
Smoke
yeah.
bombs and all
Yeah. That's why I got to be out the house for a good amount of time. But thankfully, the amount of time necessary is just enough time for me to give you the Get Right here on 105 through the Fan. So that works out pretty well for me, and hopefully I'll be bed bug free in a few weeks, like 100% bed bug free, and not having to worry about this. And I guess as long as you guys care about it, I'll give you updates.
Oh, Pete, we do care about it. People care about it because, we live through you, but more importantly, a lot of people have been through the same damn thing.
And I appreciate
tips
it.
And advice.
I really do. Honestly, I appreciate all the information that we're given by the Tolos on the truckwreck.com text. Like we got some pest control Tolos, folks that have lived through these things. Thankfully, I don't think that I'm in the certain situation as some folks where they were like had to throw the whole house away, right? Or had to throw everything away, or basically raise it to the ground with fire, right? I don't think I'm in that place. For the 806, they've said I'm welcome to stay at their house. I appreciate that. You're very kind. And from the 817, damn, Reg, sounds like you studied about them. I feel like if there was ever a time
you needed to
study and learn about, right? This is the art of war. You have to know your opponent. Right?
You got to. And you got to know about those rumors that may not be true. Like, do bed bugs cause ringworms? I mean, you got to find out.
Wait, now I got to Google that. 'Cause do they cause ringworms? I would like to know that. That feels like information I should know.
Yeah, you don't want that to happen.
No, absolutely not. So
you don't want those dots to connect.
That's right. We're living. We're good right now. Thank you for all your concern and appreciation. And it is it's appreciated. It really is.
Can
but
you have the bed bugs move your furniture for you?
I mean, that'd be nice. Right, if y'all gonna be here, at least put in, right? Not
freeloaders.
I might be willing to let the bed bugs stay if they pay rent the way the rent is going. You know what I mean? Like, hey, if we can cut this number down, we might be able to work something out. Just talk to me.
You stay on your side of the apartment, I stay on mine.
Easy money, right? Like I am willing to give up some space. I don't use the whole apartment all the time. We can work this out. But anyways, just to get right here on 105 through the Fan. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Till 11 this evening. We'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow. CA, you got a basketball game to MC, don't you? Myself and Blake, we got you from 7 to 11. We got you the full term. Some programming notes. We'll talk to Vach Lombardi tomorrow at 7:20.
Hey, I like him.
And we'll talk to Carmen Vitale. She works Fox Sports and she covers the NFC North. So we'll get you some ideas of what's happening with the Packers game. All that happened on the Get Right tomorrow, 7 to 11. 5:30 a.m. is when Sean and RJ got you taken over. They'll get you going tomorrow. But until then, y'all be easy. Peace!
Thanks to our Tolos. Those are our listeners who turn it on, leave it on. We're here for you all day on 105.3 The Fan and on our Odyssey app.
Chronic pain.